Hey, what's going on, Uncle Mike?
Hey, Nicky Nick. What's going on?
Yeah, I just got off the phone with Chris Applin. He wanted to see if we wanted to go to Indo, check out some monitors in the wild.
Wow, that sounds like a total adventure for an old guy like me. I don't know, you're gonna push me in a wheelchair or something? Nah, I'm only playing with you. I do fine. That sounds fantastic. It's definitely a bucket list thing. I always wanted to go see the animals in the wild, so.
Yeah, I know. I think it'd be fun.
We gotta make plans. We'll do it. All right, Nicky Nick, I'll talk to you soon. Woo.
All right, I'll start looking at flights. I'll talk to you. Bye.
Hey, Nicky Nick, how are you, kid?
Hey, what's going on, Uncle Mike? I'm doing good.
Not much. Yeah, it's been a hectic ride for me.
Yep.
I had the sewer line blow up. Miss Tinley cost me a lot of money. That sewer line.
Yeah, what a shitty time to happen. So you had to miss Tinley.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. Some big changes coming to me and my wife here. We're
no pun intended on the shitty timing.
No, you're right. No, you know what? I don't even hear that anymore. I've been hearing it for like 7 days.
I bet.
Oh, that's a really shitty reason not to go.
I know I'm not the first.
No. But you're my favorite.
Awesome. That's all that matters.
So, me and Karen, we've been talking about downsizing. It's a huge house for me, her, and my daughter Gigi. We heat the house with a wood stove, so it's a lot of work. So we've been talking about, selling and moving to a more smaller house that we can manage better. As far as heat and air, because we got the 3 stories here, and it's expensive, especially when you're doing it with wood. I mean, it's not expensive money wise, but my wife got it. Yeah, it's a lot of work.
Yep.
So, with that being said, me and you talk all the time, but just to kind of put it out there, when we move, I'm going to have I shouldn't say I don't know what I'm going to have. It's going to be an outbuilding, no more stairs for me. And I'm hoping it's not too big because I'm getting tired. I'm not getting tired of my animals. Don't get me wrong. But it's a lot of work for me and all the other stuff. So when we move, I'm going to have I would imagine it's going to be a smaller outbuilding. And I'm going to keep the pair of captive born Tojis, 2 pairs of my emerald tree boas, and probably the unknown Sullas.
Yep.
The Mertens are for sale, 1.2. They're 5 years old. They're just starting to breed. I got like 3 clutches in the incubator now, so they got many years ahead of them. So if anybody wants them, hit me up. Let me know. Nicky Nick,
That's an incredible project for anybody.
Oh, it is, man.
I'm jealous. I just have way too much going on.
Yeah, I know. Well, we talked about it, Nick.
Yeah.
I mean, a trio of Mertens on top of everything you already have. It's,
too much. And then we're planning to move too. So and that might happen sooner than I thought. So I got to really refine and focus, just like you, Uncle Mike. Just got to maintain what I'm doing and not veer off in different directions, which is really hard for me.
Yeah. Well, and you know what's even hard? You could look at it from two ways. It's not easy moving when you got monitors, because you got to be set up where you're going. Otherwise, you can't just move these big cages in like that in one shot. They got to warm back up and blah blah.
Yep.
But
I'm gonna have to do a little do-si-do or something like that. I'm gonna have to bring them to my place and then bring them to the new place. Which is gonna suck, but it's what you got to do. I don't want to get rid of the stuff that I've raised or anything like that. So
right. Well, go on.
What I got to do.
Yeah. So it's like, so for what you're doing, it's not easy because you're kind of stuck and you can't bring in anything because you're stuck. I am heartbroken because I'm getting rid of a lot of stuff. It's a bittersweet pill to swallow. I don't want to get rid of nothing. Okay. It's no lie. You can see I'm breaking down. It's not easy for me to get around up and down the stairs. I got the chairlift, but still in all, the old legs ain't holding up real good no more. So I'm just hoping that I could get, so what I'm going to do, Nick, is when we find a place, I want to build the new enclosures there and then just take them out of here and put them in there and then dismantle these and throw them out.
Yep, that's the best way.
Yeah, and again, for anybody listening too, I have a lot of equipment for sale, a lot of tubs, nest boxes. I got a lot of stuff. If anybody's interested, just hit me up.
Yep. No, I wish I lived closer, Uncle Mike, because I'd love to help you. But I told you, I'll take a ride if I have to.
I know you will, man. I got an army of people, but I appreciate you, Nick, for sure. Gosh.
Well, nonetheless, do we have anything else, Uncle Mike? Or
no, you're getting something new soon, aren't
you? Which one? We just said I wasn't getting nothing, but you know me, I have a lot of stuff lined up.
Were you still interested in coming at it?
Yeah. That's. I thought that's where you were going, but I was making sure.
Edit it out if
No. I'm getting Lemonhead's successor, right? It was Lemonhead's, and a female from Uncle Mike too.
Yeah.
So get to finally continue that white outline that I was trying to do.
And the female that you're getting, she looks just like Lemonhead.
Yep.
Beautiful Lemonhead, no black. And the male, while he has a little bit of masking, not a lot, man, he's got this banded pattern that I see, but I rarely seen out of mine. So it's a really nice bumblebee kind of barred back pattern with a yellow stripe down the middle. But man, his flanks along his neck and shoulders, orange.
Yep.
The most orange coming I've ever seen.
Yep. Hopefully I do him justice, Uncle Mike.
I'm sure you will.
That lineage.
Mm-hmm.
But nonetheless, we have a very, very important guest today, and I want to get him in here. But a word from our sponsors real quick. What's going on, guys? So if you guys have been watching the podcast or anything Uncle Mike and I have been doing, I probably don't even need to say what I'm about to say. But let's be honest. Life gets busy. Life gets crazy. And sometimes you just need a helpful reminder. And today, I'm here to be that helpful reminder. Get to USARK.org and get those annual subscriptions, or get to your local show and donate an animal or donate goods, anything you can to try to help. Again, anything helps. $5, whatever you can do, helps us. These legislators are trying to come for us when we're not paying attention and pass these laws, slip them in other bills, and really trying to catch us off guard so we can't keep these animals and we can't sit here and have a podcast about how to keep them. So don't let them do that to us, guys. We all are here for the same reason. If it's a ball python, if it's a monitor lizard, we all love reptiles. So let's keep it together, stay a community, and get behind USARK, someone that has our backs. Let's have theirs. What's going on, guys? Whether you're a first-time shipper or a veteran to the industry, Reptiles to You has you covered. Reptiles to You has everything you need to ship your reptiles and invertebrates safely. From top-notch supplies to an industry-leading live customer service team, Reptiles to You is a one-stop shop that we've used and trusted for years. They've got options on their website for single-purchase shipping kits or bulk options for all the best supplies to use if you're a breeder that ships out larger volumes at a time or just a box here and there. And of course, you can create your own shipping labels on their website at the lowest rates in company history. Part of providing the best for our animals is also ensuring that they travel safely to their new homes. And there's no team better than the people at Reptiles to You. So guys, if you're looking to partner with the best in the industry, it's an easy choice. I did it a long time ago and I never looked back. Follow the link in the description and join the Reptiles to You family today. Hey, what's going on, Chris?
All good. How's it going, guys?
Good.
Hey, Chris, there he is.
Very professional, this podcast, all this editing and all the rest of it.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I gotta say, it ain't easy, but it's a lot of work. You know, that's all Nick. I'm only playing.
Mike does everything. I just get on.
So far, I've been getting the guests and just pushing shit.
Yeah,
but, we run our own. I do the internet stuff. Uncle Mike does all the booking and all that stuff. Which is
I've been enjoying your intros and your AI stuff.
Yeah, you like that? Cool. That's what we wanted to do with it. You know what I mean? Just make it a little more fun. Where dude, we breed monitors. We're not brain surgeons, right? Let's have fun.
Yeah.
We get into some deep stuff on here, but we want to make light of it, and we have fun with it the whole time. We're joking around and messing around, so we want people to understand that when they come into the podcast.
Yeah, it's just like a fresh take, isn't it? There's so many reptile podcasts now.
Yeah,
it's nice to have something different. I was listening to your episode with Drucker last night. That was good. I need to go back because I obviously fell asleep halfway through. I usually listen to podcasts. My wife gets annoyed with me because I put a podcast on, then I'll listen to half of it. And she's like, "You're watching the same podcast again?" I was like, "No, I just fell asleep."
That's funny. I do it while I'm driving. My wife's like, "I don't really want to listen to this." I'm like, "Sorry."
Yeah, it is. Well, the best was when I had the job before, electrician in England. Then you just put it on in the van between customers.
Oh yeah,
right.
It just beats the radio.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
It's hard
Nothing
to get
good
them
on
in
the radio these days.
So many good podcasts now. It's hard to fit them all in.
Yep, yours being one of them. I'm a big fan of yours as well.
Absolutely, Chris. Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm trying to give it a go. Again, trying to do a bit of a fresh take on it. I've taken a bit of hiatus. Should be back in mid-April. Trying to do some more like presentation type stuff, like I did with Will Scott, with some papers come out.
Oh yeah.
And then I did one on tree monitors. There's so many interview podcasts, and then you run out of guests between like the three of us that are going now. Obviously, the other one on Trap Talk. There's only so many mock breeders. And then there's only so many people that actually want to come on and talk about it. There's some really good breeders that they just it's just not their thing, which is completely understandable. So just trying to do a bit of education stuff on there as well. But again, that takes a lot more work, as you're finding, Nick, with all this editing and stuff. When you do something that's not like this sort of interview, it takes a lot more work to get it together. And so getting a guest, I was doing mine every 2 weeks. It's quite hard. Yeah.
That's what we're doing now. We were doing it every week, and we stepped it back to every other because it's a lot to do the podcast and edit it and do the intros. And I mean, I'm still figuring all this out. So this is all new to me.
It's good.
Yep.
It's good.
And it does. We're in such a niche that unless we have like a crossover topic that we're niche. We're monitors. So we're all 90% of everybody in the monitor world, we're all friendly, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, what do you have? Maybe 20 possible guests. I mean, if you're doing 2 shows a week, you're circling back quick, But, but that's why we're glad to have here, because we feel that every guest brings something different to the table besides Nick and myself. And, it's just it's like a brainstorm session. It's just a great conversation, and people pick stuff up from it. So what I have some questions for you in what I believe is like one of your strong suits in this is you're there, right?
Yeah.
You're there. And like I'm in Wisconsin, Nick's in Pennsylvania. somebody says, hey, this is a Kasir Island teamer monitor. He could have got it off of Rate. I don't know.
Yep.
You know, you're there, so you're seeing. Nobody can't lie to you too bad because you're right there.
Well, they can try.
Yeah, I'm sure they do. So,
yes, it's a lot easier for me, and I get to see a lot more stuff from a lot more different places, which, you know, I'm super thankful for. So yeah, but yeah, there's still people lie over here. It's just the way the trade is, and then the legalities of stuff that should be popping up and then shouldn't be popping up is, you know, there's things going there, stuff that's been in captivity over here for a long time, but they didn't have the collection data back then because they, you know, just wasn't so specific as we want it now. So, but yeah, you know,
well, I look at it kind of like this way too. I know if it comes out of Indo, that it's got to be okay. If it makes it here, it's got to be okay to purchase legality wise. I mean, some things we know, but I figure, you know, when you're swimming in a pond with alligators, you don't got to swim faster than the alligator. You got to swim faster than your buddy, right? So you're the guy in the back. You're way over there. So when they come and get, oh, what happened to Chris? He tried bringing in them solos or whatever. You know, it's funny. But that's what brings me to this. So we've talked many a times, and you're not that familiar as far, and I'm talking about there seeing things. You're not as familiar, or you guys aren't allowed to get Philippine stuff from.
No, it's not Indonesian. And then the Philippines is a weird one. I'm pretty sure it still stands that they're not allowed to legally export anything.
Right.
So how that stuff come out in the first place, I don't know. A bit like everything else.
Of course, all my favorite stuff can't leave. That's just how it goes.
Yeah.
Yeah. It, you know, and the funny thing is, I could think back to, geez, it had to be mid-90s, something like that. Being a partner of mine, we had imported 1.2 wild caught coming eye, and you know they were rough. And this was so long ago; things weren't like they are now with communications and shipping and stuff. But they were actually they couldn't have been smuggled because we legally got them.
Yeah, I've never kept my finger on the pulse that much, but Duncan McRae was over here. I remember his website. I think it was Herptofauna for his farm.
Right.
He had everything from the Philippines. That would have gone to not Ganalan, Gorman's brother,
Jim.
So they would have got a lot of that stuff in, and then he had that all, and I'm sure that must have all been legal just because how transparent he was. I mean, the first coming I saw was on that website, Nicalis. He had pretty much everything. So I don't know because I haven't kept my finger on the pulse of it, whether there was legal export at one point. They've shut it off, which happens all the time. The Solomon's open and closes all the time. And I don't know where it stands at the moment. But from the most recent, what I heard, they can't export, but they're doing a lot of imports now that I've seen. So, yeah, I just haven't kept my finger on the pulse on that stuff.
So a real question that I want to get to, I'm selfish, you know that. The sullas, you know, these unidentified sullas that we got here.
Yeah.
You got anything for me on that? I mean, I love these animals. Nick loves these animals. We just, and again, I say this all the time. People call them, you know, Varanus prasinus, Varanus togianus. You know, we as humans put names and labels on everything because that's what we do. We categorize everything. They know what they are. You know what I'm saying? But it would be nice to, you know, I'm not a fan of generic names like, you know, the common type names. I like using, you know, Latin names. I need a Latin name on these things. I don't know what they are. It's driving me nuts.
Yeah, well, taxonomy is a joke, to be honest. It's not been. I've had some pretty bad luck with some taxonomic work I was doing this year, and the more I looked into it, it's just like the rules are all made up for it. People that should be naming stuff, they're sort of in their own cliques, and what they say goes, and they get their work into papers. There was a recent paper done on this Team Rensis complex. So the Kizar Timors have now been formally described as Dalcantoi, But he's a cool guy. He was breeding them pretty well, but they've named him as the legal collector of those specimens, which is completely illegal. There's no way he's not an Indonesian. There's no way he could have legally collected those animals. So me and the guys over here that were working on the population from Savu. So there's another Temerensis type from Savu, which they sort of half named in this paper. They didn't have all the answers. So these Savu Temerensis are pretty much patternless as adults. But as babies, they actually have some pattern, but they didn't have that answer because they only had a couple of specimens, or maybe even one specimen.
So their adult coloration is dark backed or light backed. What are they?
They're like a really reddish sort of color with some lines coming up the side.
And what are they again, Chris? Could I look them up if I were to?
If you just put Savu Timor into Google, that they would come up. I've successfully bred them twice now.
Nice.
And like we were looking at describing those ones, and then this is with the Indonesian government, the head of the scientific authority over here. So we were working really hard. And then the German guys, Wolfgang, Andre, and they jumped on it. They sort of quick rushed to name those that population. So I mean, there's Savu here, there's Roti, and then there's a little island called Endio. And the ones that they've described are from Endio, but they look for some reason the same as the ones from Savu, which is quite a way away. But instead of waiting and then checking the Savu population against the Endio population, they just went, oh, these ones from Endio are new, described off one specimen that was illegally collected by the same RAL guy. And then they've just put in the paper the Savu Enigma. We don't really know why they look the same on Savu as they do Endio. I don't know why people say that there's a patterned variety and a non-patterned variety. Maybe there's two more species. It just rushed through. It just clearly rushed through. But we were trying to do the proper work. But the annoying thing now with taxonomy is we sort of have to test these ones from Savu legally and everything, compare it to their one, and then we might end up proving them right. So we do all the work, and then we actually end up, proving them right, where they've jumped the gun, really. They should have had all the information.
Right.
So, yes.
Which, that's the thing that gets me with this undescribed, I don't even know. I just say that all the time. Undescribed species of Sulawesi monitor. I mean, they've come in. They come in. They don't come in. It's a hit or miss thing. But they do come in, and people have kept them. Since I've been in this stuff. You know how they come in like water monitors, and one here, one there, whatever.
Yep.
But they're known. You know what I mean? They're known by people, and I would imagine science, but they're not described. That's what messes with my head.
Yeah, like I said, there's a lot of legal. This is why this paper's annoyed me so much that these German guys done. I mean, they're the legends of. They've named everything. Wolfgang Boehm's probably named more Indonesian monitors he has named more Indonesian monitors than anyone in the world. Wow. Yet he's never stepped foot in Indonesia, and he's named the majority of them after his mates, and they've all got German names, which was also a kicker for this Savu thing we were doing. They've named them subunicolor, so Varanus temerensis subunicolor, which means less than one color, which is just an awful name for it, considering they start off. It's just like the word. And then Del Canto, I speak to Raul, who's the guy that collected them, and he actually did really good work with them. He was like breeding them well in captivity. Probably the most amount of information we've got of those monitors. It's from him visiting that island and doing it. So that name I can sort of understand because he put the work in. But the legalities of this taxonomic to do it properly. You need legal specimens to have left Indonesia, usually via the pet trade, with legal CITES paperwork and all that sort of stuff. This one, we found out some Temerensis had actually come legally from this very farm, legally out in the same year. But then you speak to the owner of this farm, and he's like, I never sent any Kizar Island to that. So they were just Temerensis, but they've got that name, and that's how they've been to legal. So it depends on the scientists and it depends on the paper that you put it into. There's like a hierarchy of papers that these things get published in. Some of them are a bit lower and easier to publish, and then some of them are a lot higher and harder and go for a bit more of a review process.
It seems that the higher standard should be the standard. I mean, because so many things go and get renamed or taken out of the, elevated to its own species, so, I mean, take your time, do it right, and get it done. That's what I think anyways.
As a political aspect, and, I'm not casting aspersion on anyone, but depending how long you've been being a taxonomist and how long you've been doing this stuff for, is how heavy they're going to review your paper and how likely are. It's a bit like anything in the world. If you've been publishing a paper for 10 years, the review process might not be as strict as it is for other people, newer people that are trying to do the same sort of work. Which, that's life. There's been some really good papers come out of Australia, like super, super thorough. Those 3 new species of rock monitors. Couldn't get any better taxonomy. And they did the one on Tristis. So instead of Tristis orientalis now, you've got Tristis and Varanus orientalis. So completely separate them off.
Wow, I didn't know that.
And then that's like a really in-depth paper. You couldn't pull that apart anymore. But then other papers sort of just get flicked through. And depending on how, I don't know what the word is, morally right you are. I don't know, that's not really the right phrase, but I speak to Robert Sprackland a lot, and I'm like, oh mate, look, we've just lost out on this one, we've just lost out on that one. And he's like, yeah, but we want to do it right, Chris. We don't want people to come in 10 years and rip it apart, which is what can happen. If you put it in this, you're alluding to, Mike, if you quickly do it and you haven't got a really structured paper, then people in 10 years can sink your name. Annoyingly, not annoyingly, but in that paper that described Tristis and Orientalis, they also had to name Varanus corunda, which is like a Scalaris type. They had to use a name that was from the 80s from Wells and Wellington, which at that point, the description was literally just, oh yeah, this is a different monitor, really loosely based. But because they coined that name in the 80s,
that's so
and
crazy.
A name had been proposed, you have to go all the way back. There's a hierarchy of the names that's being used.
Wow.
And then in that
whoever throws the name first, they have to take it, which is so nuts.
Yeah, but this is why taxonomy is a bit of a joke. It's like the least scientific science there is. There's
it's funny when you're layman like me and Nick, we're not highly educated. We really trust that process and hold fast to Varanus similis. You know what I mean? Hey, somebody named this, they knew what they were doing, and it kind of falls into the categories in your own head. Then it gets broken up. Then you see something like these 3 new species, and I realize there's no export out of Australia, but I mean, they all look so close. You know what I mean?
Yep.
I mean, there's a lot of the stuff before was just done on morphology. So it was just looking at, scale counts, hemipenis, pattern, color. It's basically where everything starts now anyway. But now we've got pretty good DNA stuff, and they can test the DNA. Not that I'm a geneticist. This is me just talking as a complete layman. They can test the DNA from, say, these new 3 ones, see how related they are to each other, and then see how related they are to other monitors, so other similar monitors. I think they probably looked at Tristis for that, or Scalaris. And then the annoying thing with this, again, is there's no percentage divergence that says it's a new species.
Right.
So for pythons, for example, they say, like the Python guy, this is why it's very like clicky, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
The Python standard is got to be 5% divergent for it to be classed as new species, which is quite a big range.
Yeah.
It's like a long range. We're pretty related to a lot of stuff. Chimpanzees, like 98% or whatever it is. And then you look at monitors. Some of the monitors, there's like between Prasinus and Rhizingri, I think it's less than 0.5% divergence there.
Wow.
We wouldn't have any monitors, but they're clearly like a different thing.
Yeah.
So it doesn't really work. This is why there's no standard in taxonomy.
That brings us to the Togianus and the Cellas. We trust these terminologies, and they're both Togi as of right now. but you look at them and you're like, they're not the same monitor. There's no way.
They're clearly different. It's just a long process to get it done.
Yeah.
It's not short at all. Me and Robert have been working on one now. It'll be coming up to nearly a year and a half, and he's got everything legal, everything, you know, and he's just like, no, we need to do this properly. It needs to be cataloged properly, so you don't get people like me who've, you know, got a chip on their shoulder about this team renters thing, saying, oh, you know, is there nothing we can do? But like in the first place, these were, it's named in the paper that this guy's collected them, and I can't just go to Australia and collect a new species. And so why is this guy being able to collect a new species and it be named on the paper? So it's a bit of a joke. But going back to your question, is you just need to get them in the right hands legally, which it can be done pretty easy with that species. They're come out of Salvator at the moment. And then, you know, get it into the hand of someone like Robert. And then, you know, he does all the hard work. But going again to this DNA thing, is if it's really obvious and divergent from everything else, it should be a pretty easy job. On morphologically, you guys can see that they look different, and then obviously the DNA test, but the DNA test takes quite a bit of funding, and that's where you sort of get into some sort of hurdles there of, you know, before it was easy, Robert could just pretty much look at it, do all his like old school taxonomy, but now if you don't have DNA thing in place, then it's not, if it goes to a proper paper, it's just going to get chucked out. They want
we got plenty of DNA. You can hear it flapping around in the back over there.
As for the funding, Chris, is it something that you guys have to fund yourself, or is it something that like an organization helps fund?
It depends. Usually it's done by like the scientific community. I don't know where how Robert's done. He's at the Smithsonian, which is again getting it into a museum of that high caliber. They want so much more information and the legalities and everything to be done to log that specimen into their museum, where it seems stuff gets to Germany. And again, I know I'll probably get in trouble for this, but it just seems to be able to get catalogued. There's probably more species in the German museums than there are in Bogor here, which is really where they should be.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? There was no, and that's the other thing with this paper. And, you know, obviously I live in Indonesia now. I've got an Indonesian wife. There's none of that new species logged in the museum in Bogor, which is where they should be. So if my kid or, you know, anyone's kids is an aspiring scientist and they want to go and research their monitor, you know, it's an Indonesian monitor, they can't go to their museum and do their own research on it.
That's
so
crazy.
it's like a triple-edged sword. There's so many of the type. So the type is like the original specimen, the holotype. Most of the holotypes for the Indonesian monitors are in, you know, Frankfurt.
And why do you suppose that? Because of back in the day, that was the hub for you know, for universities or whatever the case may be.
Well, I think there's been obviously they've been doing taxonomic work a lot longer in Europe than they have in Indonesia.
Right.
So you can't, you know, there's a certain point where Indonesia wouldn't have had the DNA capabilities, which they do now have. They probably didn't have the scientists trained to the right level, which is fine. Which I'm not complaining about any of the stuff that was done in the 90s or anything like that. But we're now at the point where Indonesia does have its own scientists and they should be collaborated with. Fair enough, the Germans want to do their work and, you know, this, but I think it should be now. And you speak to many other people that are not into Varanus, they're into, you know, stegnotus snakes. I spoke to Mark O'Shea before and he's like, Chris, if you want to do it properly, it's impossible. You need a collaboration with an Indonesian scientist on that paper. You need the specimens to be legal. You need the specimens to be logged in Indonesia. So that's why most, you know, it doesn't happen so much.
You know what it sounds like to me, Chris? Like, you know, I'm twice as old as you guys. And my generation, we kind of had a way of doing things. You guys are, you know, way more into the communications, the technology, and we're more like old school. I'll write you a letter, you know, so do you think, and I hate to sound like morbid, but do you think you got to wait for the old guard to kind of go away before the new people who are willing to work together, collaborate? Or do you think it's always going to be that way?
I think people, I'm proper on my soapbox today. You can see how much this has wound me up, you see. I I think people need to do the right thing now, because it's so, like you say, Mike, it's so easy. And we're not talking about old taxonomists anymore. Wolfgang Bohm is pretty much retired. He was just added onto the end of the paper. You've got other newer taxonomists that he's trained up that are now publishing stuff. So it's so easy to send a message now to the Indonesian Scientific Authority and just go, we're working on this. Will you collaborate with us? I'm sure the Indonesian guys over here would have even more information. So you get a paper that's thorough, like the Australian ones. They're very insular because, you know, they don't really let anyone over. You can't export anything out of Australia. So they're very protected. But when it comes to their own species, they're very protected. It's their own scientists. They do everything legally. The problem with Indonesia is the pet trade. Those scientists in Germany saw, you know, previously a lot of the stuff come in and pop up, Macrae and all that sort of stuff got sent out of Indonesia legally, but they, you know, they've got a route in that way. But now that we do have the internet, and now that we do have, you know, really good scientists in Indonesia, it just takes an email to be like, hey guys, we think this is different. Do you want to collaborate on it? And I know from, you know, the work I'm doing with Robert and Amir over here, he's like, yeah, I just want to be part of the paper. We'll work together on it. And then it's a collaboration of the way, you know, it's everyone's animal, but really it's Indonesian's fauna.
Right.
And you know, there's some crazy stories. There was a guy that had been working for like 10 years, an Indonesian guy in Sumatra. I don't want to butcher this story. From what I remember, I just briefly looked over it. I think it was a new species of plant that only flowers really, really not often. Maybe once in every 10 years. And he'd spent you know, his life work finding this. He got some, I think they were American scientists to come over and they did this, and they described it as a new species or whatever and pictured it and everything. And then in all the press release, this guy that had put on all the groundwork wasn't mentioned at all. I don't know if he was even mentioned on the scientific paper. He might have been as a very like late author, but it's sort of like,
I've heard that with like some tortoises and stuff too. I've heard stuff like that.
I'll be past that now, guys. You know, there's no excuse. Before, I mean, I'm from the UK. All we did was go around the world and rob other people's stuff. You know, that's why we ended up half of it back. But we're past that now, guys. Yeah. You know, talking as an Englishman is pretty bad, considering how much stuff we've taken from every country in the world. But that being said, now we're at the stage where communication is so easy, and you know, just to not use any Indonesian names for things like that Savu monitor being called subunit. I refuse to call it subunicolor, even if it's going to be
that.
It's
is
just
a terrible name.
The worst name for a monitor, and it doesn't even make sense. But you know,
you would think the way you describe it, you would think that was a unicolor, not. You know, where do they get the sub from? Because if it's one color, it's just one color. Yeah,
it's not even a very good name. I'm sure they could have found a really good local name that the guys over there use. Those names that they've used for those recent Australian ones, really thought out, really good, plays it all together. That umbar, like you were saying, means shadowed. Really, just some thoughts got to that. It's like, what can we call it? Subunicolor. It's almost like they just wanted to get something named again.
Well, you know, it sounds to me like we had a dog here one time. My wife's a crazy dog lady. She spent $100 to get his, I don't know, to find out what he was, right? So she's all happy. I can't wait to get the results. Send in $100. I'm like, Dad, you just wasted $100. It comes back, and like it looked nothing like our dog. It was like dachshund, poodle, and an Irish wolfhound. And I'm like, Karen, do you realize what you just did? You paid some idiot $100 to sit in his chair with 3 darts and throw them at him in a poster of dogs. And then he said, oh, that's what you got. That's kind of, you know, it's like, it's kind of stupid. It's crazy. I could come up with something better.
This is another thing that we get wrong, maybe being as layman's, is taxonomy is only accepted when people accept it. So you don't have to accept that. You know, if there's enough backlash, that might not stick. I mean, the names will probably stick, but it's got to be widely accepted. I mean, there's Hoser in Australia that's named them all sorts of shit, and now just people have, you know, they've just forgotten about him, and they, you know, he names something every week after his dog, after he's just doing all sorts of stupid stuff. But people now just ignore that. There's some other stuff that's usually, it looks pretty good on paper. There's some Australian pythons, Stimpson's pythons. They now saying they're all children's pythons. Well, I could tell you the Western Stimpson's python is not a children's python. If you gave me 100 of them, 100 of each, I reckon I could get all of them, 99. No, I'd say 100 Western Stimpsons and children's. So if I can see that just by looking at them, then I don't believe that. And their paper sort of showed that there was a split as well. So it's all on the authors of what they want to do. There's some, if there's a chance of a new name in there, then they usually go towards that because then they get a new name, which causes more funding. All science is done by funding as well. So if,
you say that, Chris, and it brings up another note I had written down. It has to be accepted, right? So
yeah, when
me and Nick started with these Sulla and the Tojis, John Adranya, he's the one who, when I lost my last female Toji, he's the one who said, Cold-Blooded Shop in Miami or wherever they're at has a female Sulawesi Toji. So me, I'm just so crazy for the species. I looked them up. I'm like, that doesn't even look like a Togianus. John Oots he kept telling me, it's a great story. John Oots kept telling me, no, that's a Sulawesi Togianus. So I get the thing. The guy guarantees me it's a female. Nick will tell you, I got it here. That box weighed, I don't know, 25 pounds. It's a big animal. So I pull this thing out, and it's, it had a bigger hemipene than me, So I knew.
It actually had two, Uncle Mike.
What's that?
I said it actually had two of them then.
Yeah, even if he folded his in half, he'd still be bigger than me. Both of them. So I called Nick. I'm like, dude, this is the ugliest freaking lizard. I threw it in the cage, and I knew it wasn't a Toji, and I needed a female Toji, so I was crazy about it. And then literally a couple days go by, and I called Nick back up. I'm like, dude, I love this thing. It grew on me. So its color, it's a unicolor animal for sure, with the peach yellow in the face. It looked like a small Komodo dragon, but very heavily bodied, more Salvatore type, where the Tojis are more like an Indicus complex. They're real sleek and pointy heads, and their fingers are long. They're
real wiry too.
They're wiry.
They're not like confident in where they are. They want to be away from you.
Yeah.
They remind me of like the tricolor demeanor. Very similar.
Except like the tricolors, like they'll flight. You know what I mean? When you push the issue, they'll take off. Tojis, they're just waiting for you to get that inch closer because they're gonna nail you or tail whip you or something. But it's such a cool species. But the difference in the two, me and Nick started putting up photos together, looking at them, and we were both like, there's no way this is the same animal. There's no way. So to the point where people have to accept it, I'll never accept that those Sullas are Togianus, and Janoots will never accept that the Sullas are not Togianus. So that's where we sit. That's why I want them named. They're not Togianus, but whatever. Yeah. So sorry to hit you with that boring long story, but it is what it is.
Yeah, I get the frustration of, if you can clearly see it, and especially when you start working with this stuff and but the Germans will probably name it for you, Mike, or won't name it for you. They'll probably rob your idea and then do it like they did with me.
Well, if they need any photos and DNA, I got it right here. But
I think that's a perfect segue for people that don't want to give up a term. And something I'm itching to ask you, Chris. It's with the sarong Crocs. I've been getting a lot of that lately of people saying this is a sarong, it's not a sarong. And we talked a little bit about it, and you said it was Vogelkop, if I'm saying that right. And where is that? Is that like a generic term? Like, what is a Vogelkop?
So Vogelkop is just the Bird's Head Peninsula, basically, and I think it includes, I don't know if it includes the Raja Ampat Islands, which would be Batanta, Salawati. Okay. I don't think you don't get crocodile monitors on Mizul from being there and speaking to the guys. Okay. They've never seen one. And you don't get them on Waigeo. So you get them on Salawati, Batanta, and then the Vogelkop is that Bird's Head region. So if you look at
it's like a territory kind of.
Yes, the whole area that would include Manokwari, Arfak, Serong region. Like Serong is a regency. There's Serong city, like port, and then the whole. If you look at the whole area around that, it's like a regency. So like, no, you don't get them from Serong town because I've been there. It's very unlikely that they're going to be there. But the Serong regency, yes, you probably could get them there. But you could also get them way further in towards Manokwari. For sure, they come from Manokwari. And again, probably not Manokwari city. Yeah. But the jungle. Right. I'm just sorry, I got a map over there. It makes it a bit easier. Yeah. It's pretty. As soon as you step out of Manokwari, you got the Arfak Mountains there, so I'm sure they occur there. So the names of them
is pretty generic. The locales, but it sounds to me like I learned something. I don't know if you did, Nick. Like I knew Serong was an area. I didn't know there was a Serong city, which is fine. Yep. But I also didn't know that within Serong is. What did you say?
Regency, right?
No, not the Regency. You said within Serong is I don't know. What did you say? Manokwari?
Oh no. So that whole Vogelkop region, is basically the Bird's Head Peninsula. They call it the Bird's Head Peninsula. It looks like a bird's head if you look at a map of West Papua. That whole region has got all these cities that we know about that have been coined for green tree pythons mainly. That's basically where it come from. So you've got Manokwari, and then you've got over here, you've got Serong around there. But what I'm saying is, unless you've got the collection data from the guys over there, and this leads me on to something I'll explain in a minute, it's probably better to call them Vogelkop. Because really, the Manokwari ones might have been sent to Serong, and then they come out of Serong. The Serong ones might have been sent to Manokwari, and that way around. Unless you've got guys on the ground.
Vogelkop, there's probably multiple localities. It's just they're not described yet.
Yeah, and this is where it gets a bit easier, and I wish we probably did this a bit more. And this has all come from the 90s with Bushmaster doing, a lot of the stuff. There's like micro localities, and some of them work and some of them don't. But now we've got like the paper from Latouche, which has split up all the green tree pythons. There's in pretty much everything in Papua New Guinea as a whole and West Papua, you've got Vogelkop populations, and then you've got a northern population, which is like Jayapura, and then you've got a southern population, which is coined as Merauke, which, it wouldn't be Merauke, it'd be about 80 kilometers north in a place called Muting, which is more jungle. Again, Merauke is just like a city port sort of thing. There's no real good jungle.
So even the Meraukes aren't really Meraukes. The ones that people call.
That's Muting, yeah.
Wow. Yeah, this is I don't know if you're thinking this way, Nick, but this is what I'm thinking. So all this stuff that we've known forever, I've been around a long time. A Serong is just something that we notice as the larger spots, the darker head, much larger animal. And then when we think of Maruk, we think of the scattered pattern and the yellow face. Is that accurate?
Yeah. So
that's accurate.
So the better way of looking at it would be for crocodile monitors and pretty much everything that comes out, even green tree pythons now. Yep. You've got your Vogelkop population, which is your northwestern. They all look pretty much the same. So what I'm getting to with the crocodile monitors is the ones from Merauke and the ones from Serong look the same, probably because they're their own species. So you've got this northwest Vogelkop animal, and then you've got Jayapura. So they're in Papua New Guinea, there's a central dividing range, really big, high mountainous range. Whether Salvador, but they just couldn't. it's sort of a natural geographic barrier.
Gotcha.
Barrier, right?
It splits the northern population from the southern population. Not many things actually make it over that central range. There's cassowary, 2 different types of cassowary birds that are on the southern population. Then it turns to a new species when you go to the northern population.
Gotcha.
There's loads of stuff. Kingfishers, with green tree pythons now. Now you've got viridis at the bottom, which is your Merauke and your Australian type. And then when you go above that, you're now into Uterensis, which is the Jayapura type green tree pythons.
Gotcha.
They've made them subspecies. So what I would probably say, just as my guess, would be sarong would be its own species. The Vogelkop animals, which would encapsulate Batanta, Manokwari, sarong, as we know them in the hobby.
Okay.
They would be their own species.
Gotcha.
And then as you get towards Jayapura, which is again, we can sort of see that they're a little bit different. My guess would be that they are probably subspecies.
Okay.
Potentially
So
species.
Jayapura is on the other side of that mountain range. So it's
So you've got the Vogelkop here, and it goes down to the bottleneck here, which is sort of another biogeographical barrier, which stops a lot of stuff getting from here. This is why stuff here looks different to stuff here.
Okay.
There is like an edge strip that goes round, and I haven't been to this bottleneck, but potentially they could, the crocodile monarchs could live in this strip and make it towards there, towards Jayapura.
Right.
So it's why the subspecies of green tree python is still just a subspecies. I mean, they should be different species. There was enough DNA basis to split them, but they're sort of similar looking, not completely looking. Again, if you speak to Ryan, he could probably name 100 sarong animals compared to 100 Jayapura animals.
Wow.
I can do it pretty good, but sometimes I have to ask him. A bit like you get with the Jayapura crocodile monitors.
Yep.
Sometimes there's these ones that are like not textbook, so you get this in between one, and you're like, if you
exactly
really
what
look
I've been dealing with.
yeah.
So, no, go on, Chris. Keep going. Keep going.
This could all just be bullshit, but I'm just working off evidence we've got off pretty much everything we've looked at in these regions, and a really good paper done by Dan with the green tree pythons, which is almost what we're dealing with the crocodile monitors. Is to a layman person, green tree pythons are all just a green snake, and there wasn't much difference between them. That's why it caused such a problem in that because they've been hybridizing them and all sorts.
Yeah.
And they're just a green snake. But when someone really goes and looks into it and goes, well, these ones have got black tails, these ones have got a stripe in their eye, these ones get massive, these ones, and then you look at why that is. Well, then we've got these groups, they call them clades, basically, of all those ones that look like that are coming from the southern region, and then we've got this big mountain range in the middle, and you hop over that, and now they're all starting to look slightly different. And then you've got this other geographical barrier, and they all look different again there.
Now, do you? I because you're there, and we only see what comes to the U.S. I mean, other than internet, you're there. Are you seeing that kind of variation in these croc monitors, or it's not that drastic?
Yeah.
It could be that drastic. Wow, see that, Nick?
Yep.
So,
that's the same thing that you're describing with that croc monitor that I have. It's like you look at it, it doesn't look that different in pictures, but in person, it's black from the hips down. Like there's no banding around its tail. Like that's not normal. Yeah. There's something else going on there.
Yeah.
In my opinion, this is my.
See what me and Nick have we have trouble with all the time is, that there's variation in everything. So is it just an oddball of a certain locality, or is it standard for that locality? That's kind of where we're at.
I've been thinking about it. I'd seen someone else posted one that was similar. It's a lady. Forgive me for. Is it Elizabeth?
Yeah, it's Elizabeth. You hit it right on the head.
Is that the same as what you've got?
It's very close, but like the black here has pixelation through it, and it could just be because it's an older animal. But mine is solid black, like a black dragon here, and then from the hips down, it's solid black. It's very weird.
Problem that's always going to be with that is I can only tell you the ones that I've seen, which and the ones I've seen in the wild and the ones that we've got here.
Mm-hmm.
We haven't got anything like that. So for you, so people are saying it's a Batanta one.
Mm-hmm.
Well, possibly yes, but I've seen ones on Batanta that don't look like that. I've seen a lot from Batanta that don't look like that. So it's not like you were saying, Mike. It could be a variation of that. It's not like every single one of those animals from that area has got this black thing going on.
Right.
So it becomes very, very tricky to say. It's like Merauke, we can pretty much say those have all got pretty much speckled pattern. They've got a yellow sort of muzzle on the front. This is where the Jayaporas, I've got some that look very much like sarongs. And then so they become, that's probably why I think now that they might be subspecies. They're probably a lot more closely related, where I'm saying I'd put money on those Merauke ones being a completely different species.
Okay.
And now, in that suspicion of yours, it has, I got to ask, size something to do with it? They don't get as big, they get bigger, what?
Yeah, everything from Merauke seems to be some sort of dwarf. There's a cockatoo
smaller.
from there.
Cool.
Yeah, there's a cockatoo from there that's smaller. I think there's wallabies there that are smaller. There seems to be some sort of dwarfism going on with a lot of that stuff in Merauke, which separates it again from the stuff you're getting in these other ranges. And everything is, there's not much stuff that crosses both sides. There's a lot of stuff that it's the southern population, and then you've got something very similar on that northern population, but they've been separated as a different species. It's a massive mountain range. It's like 3,000 odd meters. We're talking thousands of feet high.
That brings me to another question now. That mountain range you're talking about, is that the highlands? You're up there with the Bolanai at this point?
Yeah, it's the exact mountain range you get.
So it's a little cool for monitor lizards up there.
Yeah,
and you won't get the things that like a Salvadori would need to how it's evolved. I mean, Salvador have been known to go pretty high up, but then as you get into that Bolan territory, from what I've seen, and this is just speculative, it starts looking, the trees get smaller by the looks of things. It's a very wet, it just doesn't scream somewhere where Salvadori live. And then you look at other species, like I think the scrub pythons go up to a certain point, which would be sharing this very similar habitat to Salvadori. And then past that, you turn into, Bolan's pythons that have adapted for that sort of range.
Right.
It's never 100%. And this is where taxonomy, and this is why that green tree python paper sort of just named them as subspecies, is when does it start and when does it finish? If you talk to Robert, it doesn't really matter of when, if they hybridize, it doesn't really matter in taxonomy anymore, or when they start and when they finish doesn't really matter. And then, like I said, if you look at a map from that Vogelkop, it looks like there's like just a corridor. This is what you can get as well. These barriers are not always 100%. There could be a corridor going around it, which they could utilize. But if they've been separated for, a certain amount of time, then we're likely on the road for them to be in different species. But that southern population pretty much always is a different species. And then they look so different to the other crocodile monitors.
So besides it being difficult to get up and over, they might not survive getting up and older with that drop in temps and no trees and things to eat, stuff like that. So that's why they're so separated.
The other problem you got with taxonomy, and you're talking about species for millions of years, that mountain range might not have looked how it does today a million years ago, or the last ice age. So this stuff can come very close together, interbreed, and then glacial maximum or something like that can cause that habitat to then separate again. It's what happened with all the tree monitors by the looks of things. All those tree monitor populations in like 11,000 to 2.5 million years ago was all connected. It was connected, like Batanta was connected to Waigo was connected to Salawati, and Salawati was connected to the mainland. And then during different sea level rises, it's broken them off. As it is now, they're all separated again, but they're all very closely related together. If you look at the DNA divergence, if you were a Python guy, you would say they're all the same thing.
Yeah.
But we're monitor guys, and the monitor taxonomists say, no, they're different things. So
well, it's funny. We were originally talking about the Timor complex, and you were talking about, so a friend of mine who his name is John Hogston, and Robert Spracklin knows him well. And going way back to the day, I was always into similis. So a friend of mine had he called them red teamers, yellow teamers, and then he had black and white teamers. And this is when I was first getting into monitors. And I said, hey, let me come over. It was selling some. So I went over there and I looked at all the teamers and I'm like, what is that? He goes, oh, that's a black and white teamer. Turns out it was similis. So I had bought that group. That's what started me with the similis. Now, I got to say, when you talk about Tristis, Scalaris, similis, I always said that about my similis, that their tail is so much like Tristis. It's, it's that carrot shaped, it's black 3/4 of the way down. So, I mean, there's more to that complex. I mean, it's probably more tightly related than we think.
Yeah, and similis is a joke of a name anyway. That's probably going to change at some point. That was named, doing the research, anecdotally, that was named after an animal from Mertens in the 50s, where he's seen one on Gruti Indelet, which is like an island off Australia. Now, I've looked on iNaturalist, and they're not similis, they're Scalaris. They're the same Scalaris as you get in Darwin, but he was comparing them to the Scalaris you get in the Kimberley, which are banded,
the red neck.
Yeah, so he went, oh, these look similar, but they're not. But they're not similis. So that similis name is rubbish as well.
Wow.
To me,
you know what's crazy, Chris? I go back like to the 70s when my dad bought me a pet Brachypelma smithi, a red knee tarantula from Mexico. Okay, I've had one since I was probably 8 years old. Not the same one, but I've always keep them because it's one of my animals. It's one of the things I love. And I posted it up on the internet somewhere, and some guy goes, "That's Hamori." I'm like, "That's Hamori." I'm like, "What do you I'm Italian." I heard him say, "That's Hamori." I was like, he was giving me a compliment. So he was telling me that it's no longer Smithi. I said, "Brother, as long as I'm alive, I will always call those things Smithi." Same with the similis.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, this is the crux of what I've been saying. It's all made up.
It's
all made up.
Yep.
It's all made up, and you don't have to accept it. There's definitely things that I don't accept. For example, going back to that Timor one that's rubbed me up the wrong way, Offenbergi are now not Offenbergi. They're Varanus timorensis Offenbergi. So they're subspecies of timorensis. Even though they're on their own island, they're definitely different. But the DNA work show that they were close to the authors that did this paper. They've now sumped them into timorensis.
And what's the standard for DNA?
No standard.
They just
made up.
Standard.
This is the big problem when you start talking to taxonomists and you start getting annoyed by this stuff, and you say exactly what you just did then, Mike. Okay, so what's the standard? And then everyone goes, we just make it up.
Wow, I kind of lost faith because, man, me and Nick talk about this. Well, it was named in 1742 or whatever, and you really put faith in that. And now to hear that, it's like, wow, I thought it was way more.
I'm gonna start naming my stuff myself.
That's what Hoser does. And then, do you know anything with Hoser is like, 100. He might name 100 names, but there's a few names that he's been right about. If you chuck enough shit at the wall, you will get a few of them. You know what I mean? This, I'm not saying you're chucking shit at the wall with this Sula one, but likely that is something different. If you can see it, and then it comes from a different area. This is what was weird with that Offenbergi. They're on their own little island, completely separated from Timorensis, close to Timorensis, where Timor is. But they've sumped them. But then if you go read some of their other papers, like the Prasinus complex, or, they've done loads of them, they've not set that standard for other species. So how does that work? Okay, so you're saying that one's now a subspecies because it's 3% instead of 5%.
Yeah.
But you named another species over there that needed a new name. This is why I'm saying it's a bit of a joke, this taxonomy stuff. I know Robert's probably going to call me and say, he probably agree with me, actually. the one that needed a new name, that divergence of 3% didn't matter then, but this one had a name. Robert named that one, and now, that one's just a subspecies now. I don't know. It's all just made up. It's all made up. But we, as humans, we need to put stuff in boxes, and some stuff is really obvious and doesn't get disputed. If the science is like all that Australian stuff, I cannot big that up enough. They went through every single thing that you could possibly argue against, the biogeographic barriers, the areas they've come from, how related they are to each other, how related they are to different species, photos of them, explain the morphological differences of them. Everything's there as a complete package. It'd be very hard for someone to go and say, right, that's not what that is. But there's different levels to this taxonomic stuff. And if nobody argues with it, and then the naming thing is probably the easiest thing to get in, because once it's been published, this is what I found out, once it's been published in a scientific paper, that name sticks. Even if I go out now and prove that there's something wrong with the work they've done, or prove them right, that name will still stick, like subunico. So
that's great.
It's all made up. But to go back to El Salvador, I think, because I don't want to keep going on tangents. I don't know, Nick. It's not like a locality thing that I've seen. That
and I don't want to seem like I have like this thing and I'm trying to figure it out. It's just when I saw it in pictures, I'm like, that's like something I've never seen before.
Yeah, but Nick, that animal you have is definitely unique and it's very beautiful. So what I guess great information to gain from this is, if Chris says that's more of the Jayapura type than the, what do you call it, Vogelkop type, you know what I'm saying? At least you could look for ones from that region with a similar look and just line breed it and
kind of prove it out and see if it happens with the babies or if it gets diluted or what happens.
So it's like a line breeding project.
Yeah, I would probably more on the case that it's got some like an increased melanin going on, which happens quite a lot, which possibly could be genetic.
In that case, like I would think it would be more of the Vogelkop type, like the original sarong type, because if you get a sarong in the right light, you see all that dark shadowing there. Maybe not in the tail, but you see all that. So I would say that maybe like a darker sarong or Vogelkop would be good to pair with that.
Yeah. I guess more confusing than that, because there's some Indicus population over here that I'm working with, and they're all melanistic from that population.
I saw those are crazy.
Yeah.
And you were saying that you think that's a different species, right?
Potentially, yeah. I think
is that different than
I'm a typical Varanus guy. If it looks different to me, then I'm always going to say it's pretty much. I'm a splitter. Like I will split stuff until someone tells me it's the wrong way. I've become a little bit more conservative with it after seeing a few things and how variable stuff can be.
Now so that melanistic Indicus one is chlorostigma or no?
Yeah. So this is a mess. I mean, you could do a whole hours and hours and hours of all this, of how much of a mess taxonomy is with Varanus, again from the same guys, and people have argued with this. So, what's the simplest way of saying this? Varanus cerambenensis is from Ambon and Ceram. That is actually Varanus indicus.
Okay.
Wow.
So if you went all the way back and looked at the person, I mean, we're talking really long time ago, in like the 1800s or whatever. When Indicus was named, they named it from that population from Ambon.
Wow.
And then, because we didn't know a lot back then, everything's been grouped together into Indicus. But now, what's the best way of doing it? So they just named, instead of going back to what, this is why it doesn't make sense again. Later on, instead of going back and looking at the specimens, they then named what should have been Varanus indicus, Varanus cerambenensis, which is the same lizard, basically.
Wow.
And then Varanus chlorostigma is basically everything else. All around Papua, all Australia is all Varanus chlorostigma. Someone argued with them about the type specimen being Varanus, what they've called Varanus cerambenensis, as being indicus, and it's just been ignored. You can do a deep dive into that. But yeah, everything from
the chloristigma that you've posted looks nothing like the chloristigma that like we have here. So I guess it's needs to be broken down.
Or yeah, it could probably be broken down further, possibly. But all the stuff from Sarong, Merauke, and Australia, the whole thing is all chloristigma, not Indicus.
Gotcha.
And then I don't know where they've named Indicus from now. On that paper, there's a paper on it. Whether Indicus now only occurs. And I think what happened is they're saying Indicus and Sarambonensis occurs on the same island, where the scientist actually says no, it doesn't. There's just Sarambonensis. Sarambonensis should be chucked out, and it should just be Indicus because they were named first.
Yep.
So the stuff from Ambon and Saram shouldn't be called Sarambonensis. It should just be called Indicus because it was already named Indicus years and years and years ago.
Gotcha.
The same guys, are now saying no, you get Indicus and Sarambonensis on the same island, which you don't.
You know, with such a complex like the Indicus complex, you're grouping in blue tails, you're grouping in peach throats, the turquoise monitor, and all these obviously different Indicus. You know, you got Indicus that get huge, you get Indicus that stay small. I mean, maybe that one needs to be broken up even more.
Yeah. So they're all your Prepisaurus, which is that sort of subgenus. I don't know why we're on subgenuses now. I quite like it. If you speak to real taxonomists, there shouldn't be subgenus. They should all just be all the Audatria, their own genus, all that. We use subgenus, which I like because I like calling everything Varanus. It's easy for me instead of these, really long subgenus names.
Right.
But again, why that hasn't been done, why they haven't broken that down, probably again because the names are already there, so nobody wants to do the work to elevate those names. But yeah, it's a mess basically. The more you look into taxonomy, the more you just have to take it with a pinch of salt. Is what
I was going to say, man, this started off as a real good conversation. I'm a little, I'm let down. No, which I get it, but that's why it just goes to show you, what me and Nick talk about. You're a valuable asset to the community because you're there. And, we communicate and, we're learning a lot of stuff from you, which is awesome.
When I ask you questions, Chris, I hold it at the highest regard, your answer. What you tell me is what I go with.
No, I can be wrong. I can definitely be wrong. And I've proved myself wrong a lot of times.
Once I thought I was wrong, but I was only mistaken.
Like I said, it's not all just about, I want to say a bit of a positive on this taxonomy stuff. Some things is really obvious. Yeah. What I'm saying is there needs to be like a standard of ethics when it comes to naming things from other people's countries, collaboration, and the best available science put together all at once, not just a rush thing. Because we've got this thing of this naming thing, a bit like being like the first person to breed some royal python morph. It used to be, you get to name it. Well, that makes it a rush to get it named. Yeah.
And that's generally when you're talking about things like color pattern morphs on ball pythons, there's still Python regis. You know what I'm saying? What we're doing is obviously a lot more complex.
Yeah, what I'm saying is that's the human element of it. From what I've seen from trying to do my own taxonomic work and looking at it, the human element of it is being the first to do something. And what that means is, so you get to be the guy that names that. So that's your thing. You've got that, I've got whether the name, whatever, is you were the guy that named it. So there's a human element there, which causes things to be rushed. Because if you're the first, then that's it. Your name sticks. Where really they should do like what the Australian guy's done, get really good, everything together, really complete, everything, the best amount of science, the best arguments together, and then the name should be the afterthought after that.
Well, let me ask you a question. Just like, we're talking about ethics here, and, ethics, nepotism, term limits, all this stuff. You think it would be of a value to say ethically, we got to come up with a name. We can't just say Aunt Martha. You know what I mean? You know what I'm saying? So it's not the first guy naming it. Most likely he's going to name it after himself, you would think.
The good thing is they can't do that. So you can't name a species after yourself. If you do the taxonomic work, you can be the author, and you can't really name it after yourself. I think it does happen, but it's sort of shunned upon. But you can name it after your sister, your brother, the dog, or whatever you want to do.
Right.
I think there should be like some of the best names. Those Australian guys, again, really good names. Some of the best names are like the ones that have taken into account where it comes from. And really good local name. Breachy is one that they've got rid of now, an Australian monitor, which had a really good backstory to it. It was from the Aboriginal name, I think meaning white or something like that, because it was white spotted. So that comes into it. Other names, I don't mind people being named after. So if you put the work in, that Del Canto one's a real difficult one, because I actually quite like him. He did a lot of work. This is for this Khizar population. He did a lot of work to do with them. So yeah, but the way he collected them, which was illegal, then does that take it into dispute? I don't know. What I'm saying is the science should be really thorough. You shouldn't just rush through this taxonomic stuff to get to that name, which is what they've done on that paper that I'm so annoyed about. They should have just named the Del Canto one, which was an easy one. It's a new species. Nobody will dispute that. They've got the DNA and stuff. But then just to add this other one in from one specimen and then leave this enigma, which I've got, me and the guys over here have been working on. We've got the puzzle, we've got the puzzles to that enigma. But now it's almost like, what's the point of solving all this stuff when they've taken the reward is naming it at the end. But you've got to do all the work before that to get to that point. So now it's like, do we really bother spending our money to do everything right just so they get the name? They should have just cut that in where it was, done the stuff they had really good science for, and then the stuff they weren't sure about, leave and probably email us or email Indonesia and say, oh, we've looked at this, we haven't got all the answers. Do you know? And we could have gone, yeah, we'll collaborate with you on it. But this is it's stuff gets rushed through too much from what I've seen to get to that end point of the name. Where if you're doing it right and doing it like Robert Spracklin does, doing it like those, the guys in Australia have done, there shouldn't be any argument. There shouldn't be me being annoyed. There shouldn't be you going, I don't understand that. They should go, oh, yeah, they've answered every single question that I could possibly throw at them, and they've got evidence for it, and then they've got to go.
So I was kind of under the impression when we were talking earlier that if new science comes along, right, and can dispel certain things that are in place that weren't really fact-checked thoroughly in this day and age, couldn't you said no matter what, the name goes back to the original named animal, or you could put your own name in there then?
No, if it's been named, so
you could do all the straight work and it's still that name.
Yeah, which is exactly the problem I've got now.
I got you.
Is like, do I bother? Do I bother now? We will, just because we can publish a paper on the answers they didn't. But it would have been nice to be able to do all the work and then have named it something local, and then have put the specimens into the Bogor Museum, and it all be wrapped up, and Indonesia have something nice, for once, instead of it being robbed by some German guys.
Right.
But
One I wish they would change is the turquoise monitor Latin name. That one's brutal.
Yeah.
I still can't even say it.
How do you say it, Chris?
Caru liverens.
Yeah.
If you think of Carulia is white's tree frogs, which means green or bluish, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So and then I think liverens is backed. I think I sent it to you now. I looked on ChatGTP and I spoke to Robert.
Yeah,
it's just a hard one to say. It's just a difficult one to say.
A very hard one.
It's actually quite a good name if you understood it. It just means green circling back, basically.
Yeah, like you said, with I think it's the umbra with the shadow, because man, that's the perfect name. It looks like a shadow's casting over it.
Yeah. And And again, this is the other problem they had this. I mean, I'll probably do a whole episode ripping this paper apart at one point. This is the first time I spoke about it. I've been speaking to Robert. I rang Scott Iper, and I was like, surely this can't be right. They can't do this.
Yeah.
Chris, this is taxonomic. They can do this. I've read through it, and there's nothing that they've done that they can't do. And then the Indonesian guy, he was like, I'm going to search all the CITES records, make sure that. And because some Timorensis come out in 2005, to where they're saying it is, even if they weren't the same species, the same specimens, they've got themselves covered. I was like, oh, this is just a joke now. This is like, if this is how bad it, I was on the phone to Scott Iper for ages. I was like, that means I can just come over to Australia, grab one of those new rock monitors, smuggle it out, and do it. And he's like, as far as taxonomically goes and the naming of it, yes, you can.
That's disheartening. That's terrible.
Yeah, it is.
I mean, I'm sure it doesn't happen very much. And going back to this and why it needs to be good is they only had one specimen from Endio, which is this monitor that looks very, very similar to the ones from Sabu. They only had one of it. And the reason they can only have one of it is because that's only one come in. And if I was a good scientist, I would want more than one of those species to compare. But because they've done it in the way that they've done it, they haven't been able to get any more. So they've named it after, one single animal, which it happens a lot. But I think that, you should have a few paratypes, a few things, to go off.
Well, it goes back to the crocs that we were talking about. If somebody grabbed the one that I have and then described it as that, and then you see all these yellow Maruks out there, you would never think they're the same.
Yeah,
because they described that as a black-tailed, black-headed croc monitor.
Yeah.
And then you'd never find that one again. If that's just an anomaly of that one being that way, you would never find another one.
Yeah,
so that's
I mean, that's it's just so annoying. It's
I want to switch gears a little bit with you, Chris, and talk about all the successes you guys have had over there with the Obor and the Maruks and all that stuff. So I guess we could start on the Obor. Are you the first one to do it?
They've done it at the farm before, but they've not documented it. So, again, this is what I was going back to, and this is another soapbox of mine, which I need to speak to Mike about as well. We've got to be writing our own publications to get this stuff documented, and we need to talk about. I don't know if you guys have heard Molinas. They're coming after Molinas now.
What do you mean?
I didn't hear that.
Okay, so we'll get into that.
Oh,
so this all ties in together, and I hope people weren't bored with my taxonomic rant that I go.
Not here.
No.
Everybody's hanging on tight. Yeah. They're listening.
So, if we breed something new in captivity, like you have with the Togianus, Mike,
right?
You've got to either you or get someone to write just a short breeding record of it.
Yeah.
As far as the scientific community now, even though we know you've all bred Togianus, as far as they're concerned, they will never have been bred in captivity until you write a little description. I don't know how much data you took, Mike, but you need to start taking data like egg weights, egg sizes. Right.
Really simple. Now, I did that with peach throats back in the day, and Mark Bayless and Robert Spracklin helped me. They helped me through that because I'm a cement finisher. But so I didn't take any records on the first breeding, but I'm ready to pair them up here real soon, and I will for sure from there on.
Yeah.
And as far as I know, especially in the United States, I don't think anybody even has a pair. There might be a straggler male here and there, but
it just needs to be documented. Not for we all know. I accept that you're the first person to breed them, just like I do with other species. But as far as when it comes to the legislation against us, if it's not,
I gotcha.
Well, like we have with this blue tree stuff. Never has there been a time that more blue tree monitors are being bred. As a community, we all know that. But as far as what the anti-animal rights people, or whatever you want to call it, used against us, they went back to records that were from like the 90s, and when we weren't very good at it as well, from the early 2000s, when we weren't having success. Where if Brian, Brandon, and everyone put a few papers together with, egg weights, the size of the hatchings, how many are living out of that clutch, how many eggs you're losing. You've got real data that's irrefutable then. And it just needs to be published. There's a few herp journals around now. I'm sure America's got one. There's some in Europe and places like that where you can just get it logged, and then they have to sort of use that information. Or on the other flips, if they don't want to use it, we can use it against them to say, look, no, they have been bred.
No, I get it as far as worldwide recognition goes. I get that. But as far as for like something that legislation that, and I'm probably wrong here, legislation that USARK comes up against, my dated photos and eggs hatching photos, none of that. It just because there's no weight and length, or because it's not put together.
No. This is where it just comes to a bit more good science or useful science. It's for sure you could just put a little note in a publication, of course, just to say it. But if you've got this other stuff that science sort of bases its stuff, just give it just a bit more credible.
Yeah.
All it is just taking some weights and stuff, put it in a little thing, and then it just means that people can reference it a bit more easy rather than just saying, "Hi, I'm Mike. I bred these. These are some pictures." If you just got a little bit of science in there,
right,
it just makes it a lot more credible to other people.
Mm-hmm.
It sort of proves what you're doing a bit more. I mean, pictures are obviously great. If you've just got that little subset, it's really easy to do. I can talk through with it. Just put the egg on the scales when they're born, and then just get some. I just use a tape
ruler
measure here.
Yeah, it's funny because I have everything. I have my weight thing here. I got tape measure. I got everything, and I should have, man. I kicked myself in the ass right now over that.
I made so much stuff I bred here and bred at home. I never bothered to take anything, and we just posted pictures on Facebook and stuff. It was only from all that stuff we done with the Macraei when I'm like, oh my God, they're using this data from ages ago, from zoos that were pretty, not very good at breeding stuff to,
So let me ask you this, Chris, and maybe Nick. So like Coming Eye, Mertens. I mean, I've had so many eggs and so many babies. Never took a weight, never took a measurement of, the weight of the egg, the length of the egg, the length of the hatchlings. So even with your everyday species that you coast with, you should be taking this kind of data.
I bet there's not that many records of Coming Eye being published anywhere with any sort of breeding data.
Wow.
I bet all the stuff from Mertens monitors, I could be wrong. I bet there's some stuff in Europe from very long time ago from Bernd Muller and Horn and Visor. I bet that's really old though by now. I bet that's 80s, 90s sort of stuff.
Wow, I could have been writing that stuff the whole time. So could you, Nick.
Yep.
I bet nobody in the last 15 years has published anything on breeding Mertens water monitors, breeding Coming Eye, breeding any of the tree monitors.
It makes sense with the blue trees. I mean, how many blue tree breeders are out there and there was no information? So I'm sure Coming Eye would be the same.
100%. When you start writing I'm writing the book on the tree monitors and you realize how far back you got to go to find any sort of information. We were really good at it before in the 90s, really early 2000s. We were really good at it, especially the Europeans, not to blow our own trumpets. We were really good at publishing data, but it's almost, and I've said it before, the social media age is way easier. Just take some photos and put them onto Facebook.
Yeah.
And everybody knows anyway. Before, you sort of had to publish because you didn't know Bob in Dusseldorf had bred Mertens water monitors. But if you looked at the paper that we all read, the social media would be the magazine or whatever it was back then. Oh, shit. Bob
Is Bob in Dusseldorf still breeding?
I don't know if there's any Mertens left in Europe, to be honest.
With what you just said with the Molinas, I'm kicking myself after those clutches. I didn't do that because there's not many people doing those.
What's the deal with them?
Same deal as the blue tree monitors.
Oh yeah, okay.
That has to be very, very new, huh? Like I haven't heard anything about that.
I don't know if they put it on USARK's website yet. They messaged me, and then the scientific authority in Indonesia messaged me as well to say that it's been raised. So the same group that did the blue tree monitor stuff is now coming after Molinas. Exactly the same thing.
Wow.
So they want to do your ESA thing on Molinas. So you'd have no interstate commerce of them, no imports into America. Exactly the same, and then they're never going to stop.
That one's going to be a little harder now because I mean, there's only 2-3 breeders of them. I mean, we
nothing
all,
like
nothing like blue trees.
The blue trees were actually, it was a pretty bad one to go against.
Yeah.
Apart from the wild side of it, and there being some trade of them, and they're coming from a small line. But basically, a bit like you were saying earlier, Mike, where they're chucking darts at the board. Any species of monitor, likely from Indonesia, because there's such a trade here.
Mm-hmm.
They're not going to go after Australian stuff because there's no trade, and the African stuff, I doubt it as well. But there's so many species of monitor in Indonesia, and they could just looking for the smallest island. Molinas comes from a tiny little island.
Yep.
So they've come out. There was some backlash before where they wanted to make them CITES 1, and then that got refuted. So they're going after the same thing again.
Let me ask you something. I maybe I'm dumb. What is the purpose of doing this? To doing things like this, interstate commerce? I mean, they're here. We're breeding them. It's almost like there's a spoiled little kid at a birthday party who's got a pin and he wants to pop all the balloons. I mean, is that what it boils down to? They just don't want us to have the stuff, and for why?
It's very hard to go into their mindset of stuff. They think they're doing the right thing, obviously. They think they're a conservationist, and they think that the like for blue tree monitors, for example, is easier to talk about than the Molinas. They think that there's only so many on that island, and they've just been raped and pillaged as much, and there's going to be none left. So, and they're looking at the USA as a lot of the times one of the biggest importers of those species. So then they're trying to stop us from, as in Indonesia, getting into what the ESA doesn't make sense to me is why they then stop you within your own country.
That doesn't.
Maybe that's just the way it's set out. It'd make a lot more sense to do what like Europe do and say, okay, they have to be a certain size from Indonesia now, because we would be the country that would be potentially exporting, smuggled ones or whatever. We're the source country.
Right.
So, Europe's got a thing where for tree monitors, if you wanted to import from America, kind of anywhere apart from Indonesia, they can be any size, just have to be proved that they're captive bred.
Well, this kind of sews it all together is why you were saying how important it is to do your data. Yeah. Because now when they start looking into it and they say, well, there's only so many on this little island, yet, I mean, if you really got down to it, if they really did get that low on that island, there's probably enough between Europe, Canada, United States breeding them that you could repopulate it. You know what I mean? I'm not saying that's the thing, though.
Not repopulate, but they're pretty much always saying that the biggest cause of them going extinct is the pet trade. That's their thing. If you look at everything, it's like not habitat destruction, not anything, not palm oil being planted or anything like that. It's always the pet trade is taking too many of these things from the wild and smuggling. That's just their, modus operandi, whatever you call it. That's their thing.
Well, because the pet industry doesn't have the money like the builders, lobby groups, and the people who want to develop properties. And they got money, we don't.
And I also think it's like a laziness thing. Like I think it's just so easy to pin us as being the problem instead of everything else, and doing research and figuring out what the actual problem is, if there even is one. Which I don't think quints really have a problem. I don't think they're endangered anyway.
That group, it's the same group. I can't even remember their name, whatever it is. They're now suing Fish and Wildlife for not making the decision on that blue tree thing, because there's still been no decision on the blue tree thing. So I think they've sued them before as well. I don't know if they win these litigations or whatever it is, that's loads of money. I'm sure that they're suing your government for not making its decision, where your government or Fish and Wildlife is probably trying to put all the evidence that was put to them together, but because they've lapsed, that come through the other day. it's very, like you were saying, Nick, it's very easy from just to pick on something, and this is where it goes again back to good science. I don't think any of these things should be proposed until they've done the science. Instead of doing the funding to shut it down, why don't they do the funding to send some, a group of independent scientists to go to Sonora or wherever it is, Taliabu, to look at Melinus and do a proper population study? Or Batanta would have been a perfect one. I would have helped them go to Batanta and find blue tree monitors. And if they come back, and I've always said this, if they did a proper population study and it showed that they were being depleted because of the pet trade, I would stand up and go, yeah, I completely agree. The science shows that we shouldn't be, doing whatever, they shouldn't be taken anymore or whatever species it is.
Yep.
Do you know what I mean? Okay, we should curb for the bad people that are doing bad things over here. Okay, Indonesia should be stopped. Or again, there's always a solution. They need to be babies coming out of Indonesia. They need to be 15 centimeter snouts event, so then none of these wild ones that potentially coming through can come through.
I think the thing that irks a lot of people, like, is the interstate commerce. Like, I understand like import export, like that makes complete sense. But the interstate commerce is just like, you're just hurting. You're making it worse for no reason. It just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, that's the bit I just don't understand. That's where that ESA thing doesn't make sense to me. But just put a ban on that species, if or a size restriction on the species for the import. But why would you possibly ban it? They're there. They're already there. Like you said, Mike, they're there.
Now, Chris, help me dispel this, because of something you just said. Makes me think of a situation that we've heard of back in the day where, okay, they weren't allowing any wild caughts. Then all of a sudden they came with this farm bred, and what we suspect they were doing during breeding season, collecting females, collecting eggs, hatching the eggs, and they're still taking. They're not captive born. They're taking them out of the wild. So, they could still do that, correct? I mean, if there's just a snout event and they have to be this big to be exported properly, you're still not saying that that's an actually captive born animal. You know what I'm saying?
No, but it's very, very difficult to collect any sort of numbers of them of that size. Tree monitor is nearly impossible.
Okay.
Nearly impossible. Just from the guys I know over there, they just never find babies. Just not that. Melinus, again, you just need to make it of appropriate size.
Well, what about the scenario that I was saying? If they went out during breeding season and grabbed gravid females, kept them in captivity till they dropped their eggs and then hatched the eggs.
It's a lot of work.
Yeah.
Probably how much that they get paid for the animal. Potentially, I've never ever heard of anyone doing that. That's like what they were doing when they were properly farming, like the ball pythons in Africa and the boss monitors. I've never heard of that over here, which is a good thing, because that that is then a problem if they start
Well, that was kind of
also how long it takes for the eggs to hatch.
Yeah.
Even when proper incubation and all that stuff too.
200 odd days for most of that stuff.
Right.
And then not having an incubator.
Yep.
I think we're lucky there that can't happen really.
Good. Yeah. Because like I've seen, and it might have even been ball pythons or maybe some Asian rat snake. I seen a video, and this warehouse there was just eggs scattered all on the floor as far as you could see. And then, at a certain time, people would walk through there and they'd grab all the ones that have hatched, and there's clutches not hatching yet. And, there's 4 hatching over there, almost like a warehouse. It was pretty spooky looking.
The other thing that everyone forgets, and I always forget it sometimes as well, is we're quoted. We have even everything captive bred is quoted. So Indonesia is quite clever. They haven't on the protected species. They don't give a wild collect quota, but they do give you a captive bred quota that they have to come and audit you and see. And they're low numbers.
Wow.
Maybe Melinus could have been, I don't know what it was last year, maybe 30 animals. So that's our farm could send 30 Melinas out.
Wow.
And the other farms would probably be less than that because of the facilities. There's some might be more if they put more effort into things, depending on how much breeding stock you've got, how capable, how good your record keeping is what they give you a quota on each year. That it changes each year. You know, if you don't export or they don't believe you're breeding as many as you're claiming you're breeding, they'll cut that down. And we're not talking crazy. Hundreds for any. I've seen the quotas for most of the stuff, and you know, as far as the Varanus goes, it's really, really low. You know,
I never knew that. That's insane.
Yeah. So Simulus last year, our quota was 22 Simulus.
And how many did you hatch?
Like 200. At the point now, sorry to rub you up the wrong way again, Mike. At the point now of probably not breeding any Simulus this year or having to throw eggs away. I went to the guys and I was like, you've protected this species nationally, and we're looking at throwing eggs away because we don't have the quota, which hopefully they'll increase or give us at least quota for what we've hatched, which I don't mind that as well.
Now, I can only imagine they're going to tell you that's your quota. If you have more, turn them off, you know, so they're not producing the eggs. How about, and then again, maybe this would unbalance the nature, is if you did hatch the 200, you sold the 22, and you took the other 178 or whatever it is and released them into the wild. They don't want that either, though. That's not a good thing.
No, it's too many, you know, viruses and stuff that they could reintroduce. The amount of stuff that doesn't, you know, everyone. That's the dream of us all. I think when we were younger and stuff is to be able to breed stuff. The amount
It's making me think after talking to you that it makes me a little naive, because it's not only maybe they don't want it, maybe there's a reason they don't want it. It'll upset the balance. You know what I'm saying? Because
there's too many. Yeah, I don't know of many successful products where they've reintroduced stuff, and it seems to be on quite a small scale and done really well. And there must be so much quarantine that has to go in before you release it back in. You know, there's stuff we get in captivity that's mutated, especially when we're keeping different animals together. If you were just breeding Simulus, maybe, and that's all you did, and you had them contained, then maybe there'll be a project there. I think that's what zoos do. They've got like their Goliath frog. They just keep these Goliath frogs in a certain area. There's no cross-contamination with different animals. They probably have to go through a massive quarantine and put it back. Then they can potentially put them back into the wild. But there's no way. We've got it the other way of, if we breed enough of this stuff in captivity, we shouldn't need to take anything from the wild. I truly believe that.
I believe that.
Bearded dragons aren't being smuggled from Australia anymore. There's hundreds of them. There's enough to suit everything. You're getting very close with tree monitors. I can't believe that anyone would be buying any wild caught. Obviously, you know, wild caught tree monitors. Crested geckos, I'm sure they're not smuggling those out. Maybe if there's, you know, obscure localities, that's going to be one or two, not anything on mass. So I really think we can breed stuff to a point that, you know, this should all fall away. And that sort of gets to my point, and what my argument is to these, you know, animal rights groups is, and if we have this data of publishing the stuff, then that might be a more of a good argument. If we can say, look, you know, Cody in Canada has bred loads of Melinas.
Yep.
I'm hoping he's got a load of data, because I haven't spoken to him again then and now. But you know, if we can show that sort of stuff, like we did with the blue tree ones, I think they were probably shocked. Fish and Wildlife, personally, I think we're probably shocked with the amount of data and the amount of people that come forward and did it. And probably that might be why they haven't made the decision. I don't know. But this Melinas thing is going to be harder. There'll be other stuff that's going to be even harder than that. Yeah. You know what I mean? Togianus would be, you know, if they went after them all of a sudden, then
Yuani, all that stuff.
Yeah, all of it is difficult. So publish what you can.
Yeah.
At least have the data there. And like I said, you've got ChatGTP now. The amount of stuff I just run the data through ChatGTP for breeding records, and then tell it what I want, and it'll just pretty much write you a paper anyway.
That's true.
And then you just get, you know, you go to Robert Sprackland or something and say, look, can you look at this? Look through it. He'll change a few things, and then you've got the data there. It's a lot easier now.
Yep. Yeah, I'm gonna start doing it now.
Yep, definitely.
Yep.
That was another tangent. Sorry, Nick, to go on that.
No.
As for the obor, I personally need to publish that data, and then that will be the first published breeding that there is, and that's the one that matters. Even if we've done it at the farm for 20 years, we haven't published it. Nobody really, outside our community, nobody counts that. So if you want to do it and do it properly, you need to have it in writing.
I'm obsessed with them. They're very, very cool. Now, another question with the obor was those calicos. Why is that naturally occurring? Like, what is going on there? Why they're all crazy like
no
that?
idea. I'm really excited. I've got a clutch from a calico. Calico is not the right name for sure. The white obors. Two are normal. She's ready to lay now. I didn't have any female calico, even white ones. So I bred it. Speaking to the guys that are over there, they're just I couldn't get any information. Whether they're hiding the information is what I said to you before, Mike. Whether they're hiding that information from me or it's true, it's very difficult. They're like, no, we just find them exactly the same as where the other ones are. So, which just seems.
So have you seen any from two normals that you get a white one, or is it completely
no?
Okay.
No, the only ones I've seen, there were some sort of creamy ones that someone had over here, like a private keeper had over here. Not creamy, like a really light brown that they were calling calico, but I've never seen it progress. Because they all come out looking pretty Molinas-like.
Yeah.
I don't know. The other thing with that calico white thing, we got some really, really old animals here that don't look like the small red one. You know, before we were saying like there's a small red one with the orange nose. We've got some ginormous, whether they're just really old, like 5 foot ones. They're
I've
black,
seen pictures of those.
Very, very small little dots on them. I don't know if these calico white ones, that's just ontogenetic color change into it's just going to turn black.
Wow. So maybe that, because I've seen ones that are like that dirty brown that you're talking about, but maybe they're just younger animals. Like the all black ones are the older animals.
The final, the only thing, and this is where it gets confusing again. I was trying to find out about this. I think those big black ones are not the ones you've got. The red, reddish brown with the nose. I don't think, because they breed at this sort of size and they seem smaller. I think you might be looking at 2 different species again, potentially.
Wow, that's crazy.
They're just so, they're just so different to me.
Because I have one that is different than the other 2, and it's like that dirty brown color. But I don't want to say it's a calico, but it has white in it. But it's not black like the other 2. Like it's definitely like a dirtier brown color. And I didn't know if it was just like, in my head, it was a locality thing, but I was making stuff up.
Yeah. It doesn't seem to. And like you said, there's loads of them. And even in the paper that described them with white patches on their throats, on their head, random parts of their body, but nothing like you see with those calico types.
That one that you posted on your stories and printed in my mind forever. That thing is crazy.
I thought a lot like you, Nick, with this stuff of like, it's so extreme, then it surely must be something different. But then the amount of Dorianus I've seen now, which are like, you know, they're black and yellow as babies, and they go through like all this crazy ontogenetic change. If you showed me that animal in the middle, you know, when they're like gray with the yellow spots, if you showed me that and you showed me a load of them, I would say, oh, that's a new species. But, you know, as you keep them, they just turn into a more black and yellow lizard. It can be that extreme. And I don't know if that's just what's happening with those obors, where eventually they just fade out into this black lizard with a few little spots.
And I think I'm speaking for myself, but I think a lot of people think the ontogenic color change happens so young that it doesn't continue to happen. But there is, like you're saying, things that continue to change through their whole life.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you know, the prime example of that is the whiteout coming eye, you know?
Yeah, that's a great example.
You know, you get that ontogenic color change till of the back pattern and the coloring up until like 6 months, and you can kind of tell what your animal is going to look like, right? Then all of a sudden you see a white scale here, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then, you know, a month later, those two scales are connected. Then it's outlining a piece of black. It's like, wait a minute, what's going on here? And then literally, if you see those animals way down the road, you would believe that that's not the same animal.
No, you just reminded me of something I wanted to do, Uncle Mike. With the coming out of the hatch now, I'm going to do all the stuff that we just talked about with measuring the eggs and the weight and stuff like that. But I want to take pictures when they hatch and then like 6 months down the road and like in between, like, and put them side by side. And do a change.
That's a great idea.
That's the one monitor that I keep that changes a lot. Like they continue to change for a long time. So I think it'd be cool.
You know, the only problem is like with coming out and some of these larger animals that go through these ontogenic color changes. You know, if you have a clutch of 16, you hatch out 16. You know, by the time 6 months go by, you got, you know, an almost 2-foot lizard that's changing, but now you got 12 of them in the raise up cage. I mean, we also got to sell these things too, because you can't raise them all up. But if you do hold them back, that's a great idea.
Yeah, I kicked myself I didn't do it with the black dragons too, because they come out black and then they go through this change where you start seeing some patterning and then they go black again. Like within like 4 months, they do like this little tiny spurt where people are like, oh, that's a B grade black dragon. It's like, no, it's just at that time where it starts getting some banding.
Right.
And I wanted to do that to prove it, and I totally forgot. And now I'm not producing them anymore. But again, I'll do it again.
You will.
Yeah.
Got to write it all down. That's the if I can leave anything to the monitor community, the reptile community, is we need to go back to publishing stuff, just because if we've got that data there, it's just so much easier when things come against us. Just that's the one thing and it really is really easy now, Mike, to do it with ChatGTP. You write in all your information, you have a back and forth with it, and it will pretty much give you a good structure of.
Wait a minute, you ChatGPT, you talk to it, and it writes down whatever you say, and then what? I don't understand it.
It's kind of like the AI things that we do in the beginning, Uncle Mike, but instead of like a visual, it's just writing. Like
if you said
I have heard of that.
If you say write me a paper, a breeding documentation on Varanus togianus, and then you've got to police it. You can't just let it do it. If you say write me a scientific publication on with this data, because otherwise it will.
I was going to say, where does the data come in?
It
will just be you. I mean, it's a really good tool, but it can be. It will just make stuff. If it doesn't know, it makes it up. Is from what I've seen.
It can be frustrating too, because you're like, no, I want you to do this.
Yeah, but it will do so much of that Lego. And just for a little thing for a journal, you put it in there, and then you'll read through it, and you can go, there's a bit of back and forth. It's like talking to an editor, basically. Be like you talking to Robert or me about writing a journal. You can just go, oh no, that I didn't mean that, and it will change it.
Well, I'm old school. I'll be talking to you or Robert or Nick because I don't know.
You'll be talking to me as I'm talking to ChatGTP.
Yeah.
It makes you lazy, but
Well, with that being said, so the way you described that ChatGPT, isn't there any like a form like processor? Like, couldn't you, without ChatGPT, couldn't you put it on Google, say, hey, I need the outline for a scientific paper, and you could print it out?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, ChatGPT would make it a lot easier because it would literally just give you a template. Probably harder to find on Google than it is that. But yeah, for sure, there's a systematic way of writing a journal, and you can just fill in the information.
Yeah,
that's all there is to it. So it doesn't need to be anything major. It just needs to be that you've done it. Yeah. Not you, Mike, but for all of this stuff. I mean, not just
whoever.
Just that it's record with the year date, how many babies there were, some pictures of the babies, and really good information is egg weight. Just at the start, another really good one which I've started doing now, which is easy, a bit less easy with Togianus and some of the bigger monitors, is relative clutch mass. So you can weigh when she's had the clutch, weigh the female, and then weigh the eggs, and you can work out how much effort or how much of that clutch mass she put into that clutch. And with the tree monitors, it can be really extreme. It can be like she put 40% relative clutch mass into that. And then you have one that lays 2 eggs and she only put 20%. And that's really good information as well. Just need to do it as soon as they've laid the eggs. Don't let them eat anything. Obviously, don't give them a load of fats or whatever. Just weigh them quickly. And it's really, and you can track it as well on better clutches. Or if the female's in better condition, she'll put less work. It's basically how much effort she's put in.
Right, absolutely. How taxing it was on her body.
Exactly. Yeah. Which is, good information. Again, you can just write that on the note of stuff. But yeah, we were just really good at it before. Like when you start like looking into this, and like I said, I'm writing this book on the tree monitors, and you'd be surprised how far back you have to go to get this information. In those forum days, like you would have known, Mike, we were really good at it. We were really good at writing on forums, putting information on forums that stayed there a lot longer than I mean, they're all gone now, but you can sort of go back on the internet. Then Facebook is instant, or Instagram is instant. It goes on, people like, and then it disappears.
Okay, with that being said, Chris, I want to say we did get a new sponsor on our podcast, Monitor Brains here. Just to let all the brainiacs out there know, we got kingsnake.com. They're sponsoring us. They're resurrecting it like the phoenix up out of the ashes. So I do know this. You can go back to the kingsnake.com forums, whether it's the Monitor forum or the Garter Snake forum, and everything is archived. So that goes back to 1998, all the stuff we used to say. I mean, it's probably a bit of a search, but
it's easy. I've done it before.
Words out of my mouth, Uncle Mike.
What's that?
Took the words out of my mouth. I was going to say it.
Kingsnake.com?
That's awesome. I've used that for the book and stuff. There's some amazing threads on monitors on there. You've got Frank Reitz doing what Frank does. If you want to read for all that one.
Hey, if let me say something. And you know what, man? It's been so long. I don't have no problems with nobody. But, man, if you ever want to see some shit we did back in the day, go look at them posts, man. All I can say is, man,
I'm going to dive down that rabbit hole one day.
I need a good laugh. It was a great freaking time.
Yeah.
It was the best. Yeah, like I said, I've looked back at it. It's some really good conversations on there. Like I said, Frank's probably my favorite. Just look through him, just how argumentative and stuff he was. Frank, there's a great one. If you really want to do a good one.
He's moved that to Facebook. Don't worry. He still does.
Dave Kirsch, I think you were on this one as well, Mike. Dave Kirshner, obviously, Croc Doc, and Frank Reitz. When Frank
I know the one you're talking about.
Frank is trying to argue with Dave Kirshner that they don't lay
over nesting lace monitors.
Oh,
right? Am I right?
That has to be a good one.
Everyone go to kingsnake.com and look for that one so they can get some traffic on there. And hopefully the forum stuff comes. I used to quite enjoy the forums. I was a bit of a lurker. I was only 12 or 13 back then. But
thanks for that push, Chris. That was a good shout out to the Monitor forums. Yeah, everybody, there's a lot of good stuff there. You know, great information, and even through the little the bickering, the little squabbling that we did, there was still, if be with today's standard of husbandry knowledge, you'll be able to go back and see that and realize, oh, this guy knew what he was talking about, or this guy was full of crap, and it's really it's like almost like a look into the past, but with a fresh eyes on it. So a lot of stuff that we were even saying and doing, we didn't really know. We were hoping it was all right. And now you can see the stuff that worked and the stuff that don't work.
Yeah. It's crazy to see the change. And I mean, even locality, all the stuff we were talking about in the last 10 years since I've been in it. I mean, there was a lot of monitors that there was no locality. People were calling them hypos and all that stuff that they didn't have any information. They were making it up. And how much has changed since even I've been in it, let alone how long you guys have been doing it. So,
the big thing I remember, if you can remember, Mike, was how hard it was to get photos on the forums. If they changed that, I think there could be a resurgence in it. I'm sure he's looked into that.
They've revitalized that site a lot.
Yeah,
very recently, like we're talking like the last week. From me logging on 2 weeks ago to now, it's a lot different. So I'm sure they will.
Chris, that was a concern of mine. And when we were talking to John Poff and Cindy Steinley, John Poff is the new owner, and Cindy's his right hand man. That was a big concern of mine because I'm not tech savvy. So I'm like, oh man, I hope, making the photos. He said, now you'll send them in and it automatically puts it to their format size. So you don't have to do all of that. I hope.
Photo bucket, I think it was called. I don't know if you remember, Mike.
If you went to Photo Bucket, they saved it at the right size, and then you put it on Kingsnake.
Although all of them are, unfortunately, a lot of them pictures just got wiped. That's just what happens. Again, back to my point, if you get it in a scientific journal, it's really hard to wipe that off the internet.
That's true.
Gets published, it's printed, it gets
See,
done.
Sometimes all this newfangled shit ain't as good as it was.
No.
Yeah, for sure.
So, well, man, we've been going like 2 hours.
I mean, this is too long for you, Mike. Usually 1 hour and done.
I'm what?
Usually a 1 hour and done, man.
No, not with you. Are you kidding me, man? I don't want to stop now. I'm thinking of Nicky Nick.
No, I don't want. I'm ready to go.
Well, I mean, whatever. We keep going. I'm fine with it.
I'm fine with it.
Nicky Nick.
I could go with Chris for a day straight.
That's Saturday, what I'm saying. The quality, it's really, it's no disrespect to any of our other guests, but some people you really vibe with, and you can have a great conversation that's adding value to the airwaves. So for the people watching or whatever. So generally, me and Nick will get caught up with a guy like Robert or Andrew Llewellyn. We'll just go for we went 3 hours, couldn't even believe it.
Yeah.
But I'm good. If you guys aren't done, I'm good. I'm
whatever you want to do. You got a little more time, Chris, or you got stuff to do?
Yeah, I'm good. It's Ramadan. I'm good. It's Ramadan today, so it's like I don't know. I don't want to be rude. It's like, I guess, Christmas for us, for the Muslim community. I really hope I haven't offended anyone there. It's a day off for them, obviously. So there's no work being done today.
Very cool.
So. What? Forgive me, and maybe what's Ramadan? I know you said it's like Christmas.
Yeah, I'm sure that's a really bad way of putting it. They've it's one of their big,
like a rest kind of day.
Holiday. Yeah, they've been.
Has it to do with their religious belief?
Yeah. It's,
okay.
It's, as far as like how they explain it to me, so this is why I hope I'm not being rude or whatever. It's like they would say it's like my Christmas. That's how important it is to their the Muslim community. I'm sure it's not the same, but it's
as right. No, I get it. And, enough said. As much as I respect Christmas and the birth of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, I have just as much respect for whatever it is. I'm not. I don't. It is what it is.
Yeah. Indonesia is really good because there's so many different religions here, and they all live pretty harmoniously in together. You go just one island over to Bali, then it's probably 90% Hindu. Where I am here, it's heavily Muslim. You go to where my wife's from, in her little area, it's heavily Catholic. But that doesn't seem they all respect each other's religion. But they've been fasting for the last month. I don't know if they do 40 days or 30 days. So my workers have been out there doing the monitor stuff. No drink, no smoking, which is number one.
Man,
And,
that's rough.
and no food. So yeah, I'm I sympathize with them, but I'm hoping they have a really good celebration, and then I can get them back to the level they're at when they're being able to smoke
Right.
and drink and stuff.
Yeah. So
I'm trying to like smoke around the corner. Not to,
I was gonna say, yeah, I know.
Yeah, that's got to be hard.
Oh shit!
So,
But,
Chris, are you doing a lot of traveling still, or is it just a lot on the farm?
Yeah, I've got some stuff coming up soon. I've got to be careful now because everyone thinks I'm doing stupid stuff or naughty stuff. There's a lot of jealous people out there, unfortunately, which I don't really want to get into stuff. But yeah, I've got trips. This community sometimes is so jealous. If you were the guy doing something and then someone joins you, or everyone else is doing something wrong and you're doing everything right. There's a lot of that in this community. So now I just until the trip's done, I don't like talking about the trips because the people try and cause so much aggravation for me over here. But yeah, there's some stuff I'm doing. I got my son being born in June.
That's
so
awesome.
Congratulations!
Thank you very much. Which is all very scary, and I don't know how life changes and all the rest of it. Probably a lot for me, considering how much traveling I like to do. But yeah, trying to get one trip in then, and then obviously focus with my son and my wife. Put a lot more focus into some of the projects at the farm that haven't been working so well. And then always traveling.
Hey, as far as what you're saying there, man, it's like, when I say this, I don't mean seasons like winter, spring, summer, or fall, but you got to understand life comes at you in seasons. Sometimes are really good. Sometimes you hit these rough patches and you got to bounce back. So I liken that to our work with these animals too. It's not always sunshine and rainbows for anybody. You never know. I mean, weather fronts change. There's a lot of things that shift this stuff, especially once you get it running pretty straight. Well, if you have some kind of climatic change and you're outside most of it, and we're inside, even inside, these climatic changes actually can disrupt things for you, depending if it's too hot or too cold, you know what I mean? Barometric pressures. So it is what it is, man. Everybody thinks they're here and they are, but then, it's just one of these. It's just how it goes.
I need to take my own advice, but you don't have to explain yourself to anybody, Chris. You just do
No. Yeah, for sure. Talking about going back to the monitors, I think it was on Brian's podcast. You were saying that you'd had a female gravid for a lot longer than it can be.
Yeah. So I had a guru go almost through the whole winter and then decide she was ready to be gravid.
Yeah. Did you ultrasound her through that at all, Nick?
I didn't. I noticed a big swelling that never really went down. Like it was, well, I don't want to say a big swelling. It wasn't like a gravidity, like no body line gravid, but she swelled up and kind of just maintained. And then all of a sudden she blew up that extra bit. And I'm like, holy she's gravid now. And then went through the process and it was like that 30 to 45 days laid. And then that was it. But it was a whole time of her being away from that male. And then those 13 eggs are all still good in the incubator. So she never saw that male for that whole time.
While she was extended, that swell was extended like that, was she feeding normally or just lightly or not at all?
Feeding completely normally. Well, she's like a savage when it comes to food. So I didn't really think anything of that because she was just still going after the food. But it was just so weird that time kind of coincided when I thought about it with that dip in temperature because we were in like the low teens, if even that here. So it was just maybe that drop of like 6 to 10 degrees that she was like, it's not warm enough here.
That's my point. That I've been ultrasounding a lot of the crocodile monitors here, and I've got that Maruki female that went like within 2 or 3 months, 3 months and 3 months. She's been at 45 centimeters for like 2 months now.
Mm-hmm.
For 2 months. So she's if there's a regular cycle, they breed, and then a month later they should lay eggs. She's been stuck at this that's pre-ovulation from the work I've done. I ultrasounded her yesterday, and now she's got eggs in her.
That's crazy.
So it's like the more we look at this stuff is the more we don't know. Because I would have said, oh no, she's not gravid or anything. And that's been, like you were saying now, probably coming up to 3 months after she last bred.
Yep.
Just like,
and the weird part was that same female was the one that gave the Partho clutch. So like she almost seems like she knows what she's doing more so than like some other monitors I have. So it was pretty cool. It's like, it was just crazy to me because to have that same female do both, it was nuts. Because I thought I was like imagining things and I'm like, these are just going to be infertile eggs. I didn't really think anything of it. But then when she laid 13 good eggs, I'm like, holy crap, she really did hold that sperm for that whole time.
Yeah. Yes, really interesting. And the amount of stuff that reabsorbs is insane.
Yeah.
I think Brian was saying with the coli, where they go through the whole motions. When you start ultrasounding, which I do quite a bit here, just because the amount of animals we got, they go through all the motions, and then you ultrasound them 10 days later, and they're just nowhere near ovulating. They're just going back down. It takes not a long time for them to just get back to normal as well. Yeah. UONI I've been doing, obviously trying to get those done. And they're weird. They go from like really small follicles to like, not breedable follicles, but quite big follicles. And then for some reason, just start going back down again. It's like there's missing something.
A question on when they're missing something. Is that with the normal food schedule that they're eating and then they still reabsorbing?
Yeah. It's tricky to know because sometimes we don't have enough high calorie food here, so like enough rats and stuff. But other stuff I'm sure has done it. The coli and stuff last year, that was when we had loads of food, and they got right to the point of ovulation, like really big follicles, and had been breeding, and then just went down. Something just wasn't right, and I'm pretty sure these UONI, they're going to be like Boland's pythons. They're going to get to a point and reabsorb a lot, and they're going to get to a point of just do what Boland's do. Just reminds me of them so much. I don't know what it is.
Like you have to hit them spot on, right? Right on.
I'm glad to tell you this. Mona, my friend, sent me Bo and I, right? I've had them here. They're no longer here. I had them here for 2 years, Nick, right? Yeah, 2 years.
Yep.
I bred them. The first year I got them, bred them, no eggs. This year, before I got rid of them, they bred, they locked up for, days in a row and nothing. And I'm not a snake guy. I mean, I love snakes that I don't have to. I mean, that was a crazy situation. You got a snake that's 11 feet long, eating jumbo rats in 60-degree weather and still pooping, shedding, moving. I couldn't put my whole head around it because it's such a strange species as far as the way they operate. They operate under really cold conditions, and they're crazy.
That would freak me out.
Yeah, it's just like I said, it's how close you can be. It's how close you can be to it, and then it not working out. So you think you have everything sorted, everything goes right. They breed, they get to that point.
Too many times.
You see the ovicle spread, and then they just reabsorb. And the amount of stuff, that's probably what we've done over the years.
Yeah.
Are you still working with Bo and I there?
Yeah, we got Boland's here. We had a clutch last year. I'll be pairing them again in April or June. They're doing really well. Been using some anti-tick stuff. There's a new mite treatment out called a Floxner. It's NexGuard basically, and I treated them with that because they get a problem with ticks outside. Basically, oh my god, these things shed out and look amazing. I had to ring the owner. He's like, we had some more Bolands from somewhere.Ese don't even look like the same snakes. Like they're the same snakes.
So with your Bo and I there, are you doing? Are you doing any way to cool them down, or is that's do they get cool enough where you're at?
Yeah, it's really cold. Yeah, the last year we had problems with them hatching out and them getting blisters, so we lost a load of them. That I think Quetzal had the same thing,
Hmm.
where it can be not the adults. This was the babies that hatched out, so we got pretty hammered with those. But yeah, it's so cold here, Mike. And the point of that was we had such a bad wet season last year. This season seems to be pretty good if it stays like this. It's baking hot now in March, where it didn't get baking hot like this until like June last year. So I'm hoping we've got a bit more of a dry season, which the Bolans won't like. But hopefully they've had enough of a wet and cold. Now they're getting fed again. They haven't been fed for 3 months. They're getting fed again now. And then
come during these hot times that you're saying, do you spray them off with water, like to imitate the humidity and everything?
Yeah. I mean, they'll be out in the morning for a couple of hours. By now, they will have all gone. They've got like a back part to the cage, which is all completely shaded. It's a fair few degrees, and they can. I think I told you before, Mike. They can go in the actual ground,
right?
And pretty cool in there. But yeah, they're the only ones. Them and Salvadori, which I've said before. When it's like pissing down with rain here, really cold, the Bolans will be sat out, and for some reason, Salvadori will sit out on it.
Wow,
just completely. I just don't know why, but
that's weird.
Yeah, they're the two that do it.
That's weird. The ultrasound machine I have not perfected yet. I just can't figure it out. I have the same one that you do. You're the reason why I actually bought the one that I have, and just not good with it. And it's probably something so stupid, but every time I use it, I can't really see anything.
Yeah, well, I don't mean this in no disrespectful kind of way, Nick. Your wife is a very talented nurse. Why don't she teach you?
Yeah, maybe one day. She's got enough things to do.
Hey, the marriage going that good? No.
Yeah, right.
No, but
I think after having a baby,
right?
After having a baby, she doesn't want to do anything baby related. She's like, stay the hell away from me.
Have you seen anything on there at all, Nick, or not?
I mean, to be honest, I haven't used it that much, but the couple times that I have, like I made a table and I'm doing it by myself. So I'm trying to hold down a monitor and ultrasound at the same time, which isn't really easy. And I haven't really saw anything.
Yeah.
But, and I don't know if it's just like settings. I would have to talk to you about it and see.
Yeah. It's all
there's so many dials and buttons that I don't know what the hell I'm doing on that thing.
Yeah. I can send you the settings I use over here. It took a long time. It took me over a year to get to. Now I can ultrasound a monitor in probably 2 minutes.
Really?
And like off, yeah. But for a year, I was stumbling around. The more you do, the easier it gets.
Yeah.
And I do. Every 10 days, probably 200 monitors here. Ultrasounding
every
them.
10 days.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, you get pretty quick at doing it, but I know the frustration of it. Like you buy this thing, you do it, and you're like, "Is that what it is?" But it becomes
tiny little thing trying to figure out if something's there. So hard.
Like, oh, that could be follicles, or that could be the rat it's just eaten, or that could be because I've got no like anatomical knowledge.
Yeah,
I look at stuff. So I think there's eggs in there sometimes. I'm like, oh no, that's probably the liver, maybe.
Yeah.
But when
that's the thing too is I have asked Nicole and she's like, I don't see a baby. Like you're looking for like an ovum. You're not looking for a child that's there. So it's a lot harder.
The best, the easy. I suppose it's not the easy. The easiest ones for me to do are the Salvadori, but I've got a team of Indonesians that wrangle them, hold them on the table. That's probably the worst one for you to do on your own.
Oh my god! None of mine would like that.
Have you got any? No small. Do you work with some bowers or anything? Small salvators?
Not any water monitors. Not any small water monitors.
I'm trying to think of one that's
the
really.
Smallest thing would probably be Coming Eye that I work with.
Oh, Coming Eye's pretty good. Yeah, if you can get someone to. It's hard to do on your own for sure if they wiggle around.
Yeah, that's why I kind of made the table. At least I had a platform and like, everything's right there, so I can kind of do it fast.
I'm wondering this if because Coming Eye are you can get them to where they'll sit still. What if you built a table with like a square cut out and just rested them on the table and went underneath with the? Could you do that?
Got to be on top. Is the easiest.
Yeah, you could even go on the top.
What's that? So
you don't have to go on the bottom. You could go on their back.
Oh, going in the back, you get just as good as a shot as underneath.
Yeah.
Yeah, they start squirming around and stuff. I got taught by a vet the first way to do it, which he's way more experienced than me. And you can put some just some like wet cotton buds on their eyes, and they'll go into a little bit of a trance. and he was flipping it underneath, and then but he was being able to like name all the different organs and all this stuff, which it just looked like a mess to me.
But no, that's what I'm saying is if you had an animal that was calm, and you put him on a table and you had a square section cut out where his belly would be, and you just did your ultrasound from underneath.
It's hard. This is what the point I was making. I think it's harder from underneath because there's all this stuff you gotta. You do it from the back near the spine. You can sort of see it, but it's not easy, Nick. I can help you, mate. It's not a problem with. I've just done so many of them now.
Yeah. 200 every 10 days. You got to learn pretty quick. I'm doing one like once a month, and then I get frustrated to put it down for another month. And
that's what I was like. I had it for a year, and I was like, "Oh my god!" I've got the owner to spend $2,000 on this thing. I'm not even using it. I was like, "Got to use it." But it's a really useful tool. It doesn't make you any better. Just like we were just saying, then it actually sometimes becomes more frustrating. As a monitor,
knowing too much.
Everything's right, and then you just realize you don't know anything. You're like, this is look at these follicles, it's paired, and then it's like, oh well, I've now had a Salvadori ovulation for 3 months, and I can't make it. I've tried to give it more food, and then it's done its own thing, and the amount that reabsorb, all it does really, it's good when they're gravid because you can see when they've actually got eggs inside them, and it can help with pairing. Like Salvador monitors that are likely to kill each other, it's good for that because you can get to a certain sort of size follicle and pair them. Apart from that, it's probably more worse than it. It's probably more of a hindrance than it.
Definitely
doing it.
It sounds like it. Like even to that point, it's like they definitely have full control of pushing it over that edge. That final push is on them.
Yeah, 100%. And whether, like you were saying, I think a lot of it's to do with the environment. It's not just food, which I thought before, reading a lot of stuff, you could just push them over the edge with food. It doesn't seem to be. And that's, again, the trap where these monitors get fat when we're trying to cycle them. It's that they call it Dunning-Kruger effect. The more you know, the more you realize you don't know anything. And that ultrasound will teach you that we know
you don't know nothing.
Nothing. We're so lucky that we get to breed these things in cages, not where they're from. The amount of success we have with them, we shouldn't be having half of it. I don't think it's all on them, like you said before, Mike.
It's definitely I'm a food monkey and a lizard janitor. They're the pros. They do what they do. They know what they're doing. But it kind of makes you wonder that if it be like I say all the time, like. Me and Nick use this term coasting. So there's certain species that we pretty much coast with. We know we put in this much food. We're going to, we know the timing. We know we're going to get. So like, I think repetition, and I always say this about my females too, when I say, oh, she's a mature female. I don't mean sexually mature. I mean, she's mature at the whole nesting process, the laying process, like she's an old pro, So, like, I think that even in the wild, maybe it's more for like a wild type thing that they don't get so complacent because there's different outside stimuli. A tree fell over there and it wasn't, that's where she was looking to nest or whatever. You know what I'm saying? And maybe because everything's so routine in our small little cages that it makes it seem like, oh, look at me, I'm doing good. We ain't doing nothing. We're supporting them and they do all the work. But, it makes you wonder about that being able to reabsorb. And since you've seen you can't, with food, caloric intake, push them over the top, that there's something going on in their brain that is saying now's not the time. And that, to me, is crazy.
I wonder if it's an intelligence thing. Like, I don't want to say water monitors are dumb, but they're a lot like, all right, this is what I got. This is what I'm going to do.
I think it's more instinctual. It sounds more instinctual.
But like you have an Indicus, like the top tier Indicus, like a tricolor or a croc monitor that have more intelligence. Like they're like, this isn't what I want. And it takes more to push them over that edge. Where like a water monitor food intake, you probably could push them over the edge just with that.
Or it could even be like a like a danger. You know what I mean? There's something in the territory that, she knows she's on time for laying eggs, but there's a bulldozer. And I'm just, because I don't know what I'm saying. So there's some kind of environmental thing that they say this ain't the time.
Because of how much success you have with feeding stuff a lot and it going into a cycle, before I would say and that is important as well, just for the mechanics of how the eggs are made, vitellogenesis and stuff. There needs to be an excess caloric value to yolk those eggs and put vitellogenesis. But the how easily they can reabsorb those eggs is and not even go into a cycle as well. You can feed a female, and we all know this, especially with tree monitors, you can feed the hell of a female and she will not cycle. And I can look on an ultrasound machine now and go, she should be, so with the amount of food I've given her, she should be going inside. She should be producing follicles, but she's not. She's just getting fat. And then if you, like I said, I've been writing this book. If you look into, there's more stages than just caloric intake. There's the pituitary gland, which is very environmental. So if she hasn't got the environmental trigger of rainfall or the temperature or anything like that, she won't start producing the hormone that tells the body to put the vitellogen into the eggs. You're just making her fat. Where if there's like switch, I've put it in the book like this. There's like different switches. There's an environmental trigger. Everything's got to be right. Sometimes having the male around can bring things on. And if those switches aren't there in this particular order, the sequence isn't going to happen. She's just going to put loads of fat on. And
I got you. So with that being said, I'm not into breeding tree monitors at this time. I used to, but my point is this: back in those days, it was crickets and it was bugs and rodents. Okay, and maybe some whatever else little thing you found or whatever. But now it seems that with the amount of quail that's available to people, I find it a great food source for getting them to cycle. And even if you do go over the top and you miss a cycle, there's nothing to feeding quails. There's nothing. So I'm wondering, would that be with the tree monitors that you're talking about now? Could you guys do you guys do birds and not get them fat, or does even the birds get the tree monitors fat?
A lot of the ones outside don't eat quail. They were doing quail for a long time. I was doing quail, and they were just like really picky with it. So we use a lot of mice for whatever reason. They eat a lot of mice, but you have to be so more careful with mice.
Yes.
The quail we get here were pretty rubbish as well, Mike. They weren't like nice quail. I was feeding them, and they were pretty. I think they were like B or C grade quail over here. We get different grades of quail. And the amount we've got to feed, we couldn't afford to obviously feed the A grade quail that are going to for people food. They just look pretty skinny, pretty rubbish. And I was like,
I feel for you because another sponsor that we picked up is Brendan Klein.
Maybe Brendan could ship to Indo.
I told you we work as a good team, the three of us. This is awesome. So Brendan, for anyone who needs quality quail feeders and other feeders too, he's got all kinds of stuff like pigs and everything. But
this
Brendan
is great. I wanted to play any commercials for this entire episode because we're just plugging them all.
No, but when you said that, Chris, that triggered that in my head, but it also triggered into me how grateful we got to be to have such a high quality food source, and for you to say that you ain't getting that, I feel you.
Yeah. The stuff we breed ourselves is okay, but it's getting the numbers up. That's why I said a bit more focus this year on, because we've been trying to do so much. So I need to focus down just to be able to get the amount of food into some of the projects that the owners sort of said he wants focusing on. That's okay, but the stuff we get outside of that, like we sometimes have to get like chickens in to feed the Boland's pythons.
Right.
They're not too bad because they're like bigger chickens. They call them B grade, so they're missing some feathers and stuff. But the quail we were buying in bulk. They just don't look like quail. Like from your sponsor, they probably look like what I was getting in the UK, really nice, fluffy, round. I was putting these in, and I was like, well, I probably wouldn't want to eat that. And the monitors didn't. They were like really scrawny, crappy quail, basically.
Now, this is obviously a dumb question, but I got to ask it for everybody listening just to add to this. Balut eggs. Like if you took a 14-day incubated chick out of an egg, the tree monitors ain't going for that either.
Haven't tried. They eat those locally. They're probably a delicacy and probably expensive. We get all the feed that we don't breed ourselves is basically the bycatch. I mean, Indonesians will eat everything. My wife now, she's low on iron, so she's eating chicken hearts, chicken livers, and all that sort of stuff. I'm like, oh, that's what I've been feeding some of the monitors and stuff. But they'll eat anything. So there's different levels to it, and then obviously the scale that we're on. It's better if we bred it ourselves, then it's good. So yeah, I've had to sort of move around in the UK. Going back to the tree monitor thing, that was my number one. Was really good quality quail.
Yeah.
We get locust over there as well, which were really good. And then not really cricket. It was pretty much all locust and quail.
That's another thing I'd like to ask you, because through the kingsnake.com, it was an international group for sure, and the people from Europe and the UK used to always say that locusts. Well, now we have, Kai fans breeding grasshoppers. Is grasshopper and locust the same thing or what?
Yeah. Well, so I'd Pete Falstrom over here. Who that was his business before. And obviously wholesaling, breeding live food, so locusts and stuff. And I was with my friend Dawn over here as well. And she goes, "Oh, what's the difference between a locust and a grasshopper?" Peter didn't know, which was quite funny to him. He was like, "You've bred all these your life." So, we looked on the internet. All locusts are grasshoppers,
right?
But not all grasshoppers are locusts. Locust is when they turn into
crop savaging.
Yeah. What do you call it? When they migrate and they ruin everything. At that point, they're a locust. But before that point, they're all grasshoppers. So the real name from really should be all grasshoppers, from what I remember. But yeah, that's
I've seen like time lapse, of like a valley, and you just see that black cloud comes in, and then they slow the film down and they show them just bouncing through the grass, and then they speed it back up, and there ain't nothing green left.
No. We could get so Schistocerca is the grasshopper or locust from Africa. That's the really good ones. But we're surrounded by paddy fields here, and that's the ones I was feeding in Europe. And I was like, oh, if these get out, and you just like you were saying, Mike, I wake up one morning and there's no rice for the people of Indonesia, then I'm dead. I'll be lynched. So
don't make a shrunken head out of you.
Oh yeah. I'll be dead. It's just so all around here is all grass. We do have a local locust here. It just doesn't breed like those Schistocerca do. And they get massive. They get really big, a lot bigger than the ones we got in Europe. But I'm sure they could be bred, but we haven't fed it out. But yeah, going back to that point was there seems to be there is a hormone that lets that other process happen. Luteinizing hormones from the pituitary gland, the environment, the abundance of food. There's probably loads of things that we don't even think about that's happened to them in the wild that starts that process of vitiligel going. And you can see it by if you just feed everything like I naively thought, and it's just going to make a follicle and grow and be good, it doesn't come out.
I guess I should correct myself and say the water monitors weren't dumber. Maybe they're just more easy to let that go, that hormone go or whatever, where like the Indicus, like I've noticed, like I can coast, like we were saying with the water monitors, where I haven't been able to coast with an Indicus. They're all over the place. It seems I say seasonal, but I know it's not seasonal.
I don't know nobody coasting with Indicus. I don't know nobody with any of the Indicus complex animals anyways. Yeah, I mean, year after year,
Yeah, yep.
Weird thing with it is once they go into a cycle, it does just seem to be food as the main driver.
Yeah.
So
it's just getting him to get into that cycle.
Yeah, I'm talking like the initial getting of going, and sometimes they go off, and it's hard to get them. I had a Tannenbaum monitor here that was breeding every 3 months. It's like an Indicus type animal, and then it missed one cycle. And it took nearly another 6 months to get that to go back into cycle. And tree monitors are paying for it. They can get them going. And one like bodged nesting where it didn't like the nesting and you didn't get enough food onto it. something sort of messes them around, and it takes a long time for them to go back
reset.
into that. Yeah,
That's so crazy. I'm glad I'm not the only one, because that's the exact thing that was happening to me. The quints
Yeah.
are like boom, 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 and then something happened, and then they just stopped. I couldn't
Yeah.
get it to go again. It was just crazy.
It's just, and I mean, that's the bit we really just don't know. And that's,
Yeah.
and from doing that ultrasound, you can, that's why it's quite useful, because you can see it happening.
You can
You're
see
like,
it happening.
Yeah, you're like, but the ultrasound doesn't make you breathe the monitor. It
Yeah.
just
No.
goes, I can see what's happening.
It kind of explains the story to you.
Explains the story, but you're like, I'm still stupid because I couldn't get to the end result.
But that's what I'm wondering. Like with the water monitor, it's so simple where it's just food. Is there an added step with the Indicus complex, or like the tricolors? Like, what is that last thing that gets them to go over the edge?
Yeah, those tricolors are the weirdest ones, because I haven't seen them do like a full cycle follicle wise.
Mhm.
I've yet to see from small to big to breedable to reabsorbed. All I see is really small, a little bit bigger, and then really small again. They never get to the size of where you would pair them. I've never, I got close, and they do a weird thing as well, with the ones I've got, where a couple of them will be an okay size, but if you look around them, loads of them will be really small. So I was like, I think I had some at 20 millimeters, which is like a good size to pair a lot of the monitors. And I put the male in there, and then the male just ended up killing the female.
Wow. This is just a weird thing that I was kind of messing with the spinulosis was I feed them mostly on birds. So I do like the small quail, and I do birds. And then once I noticed her starting to swell a little bit, I'd give a lot of bugs. And that's what got me eggs every time, but never fertile. So I don't know. Maybe there's something to do. Something as simple as that. Maybe it's just like a rise in like a season where there's a lot of bugs, and they know like this is the time that I'm supposed to be breeding. And I don't know. It's just something I was playing around with.
Well, that makes sense, because like, there's some monitors that like time their breedings for when these insects, how insects have a boom in population, and then towards the end of the season or whatever, the 2-3 months they're alive, then they start dying off, and it kind of naturally
like a
resets
spring,
your animals.
kinda.
Yeah.
But
like what you're saying is like when bugs are going through that, I mean, they cover up a light, like around here in the summertime, moths, literally, you could look straight up into a light bulb because there's so many of them, you're not going to get blinded, So I think insects are a huge, because of the way they breed like that. It's, whenever like, okay, here comes a ton of locusts. Oh, that's that time of the year, they put on the calories too.
Yeah, I was wondering that with the tricolors, but the tricolors don't seem interested in bugs. Not like the spinulosis or something like that. They're like, they'll pass.
I think they're pretty heavily on birds. There seems to be, from the paper that I read, and they seem to be pretty tied to megapode nests, which is like a ground nesting bird that builds this big nest. That's where they were finding the UONI, according to that paper. I'm guessing
that's a bummer, man. I love those megapodes. They're cool.
Nests they make incredible.
And then they regulate it.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
It's very interesting, a ground dwelling bird that they'd go for, because looking at them, you wouldn't think they'd be on the ground much, but I guess you think they'd be up in the trees.
Yeah, I don't know if they were. I have to read the paper again. If they were feeding on them birds, or they were using that sort of, because they make these big nests and they were burying in nests or something. I'll have to send you the paper, Nick. But I just remember it was tied to these megapodes. I don't know what they were doing with them. They're like an all rounder, those you own anyway. They're aquatic. They're in the ground for a lot of the time, and then they're arboreal as well.
That made me think too, because I had them in whole cage nesting with like 4 feet of substrate, and they were burrowing down, and I'd never see them. So I took all that out and I made a nest box instead. But that makes sense, because I guess that's what they do in the wild too. Yeah,
for sure. They're almost like, again, a bit like their name, three different types of monitors in one. Not only the color, but one day it wants to be an Indicus, it wants to be a tree monitor. Beautiful, but just hard work.
They are a headache. That's for sure.
Yeah. All right. Now
Definitely.
we're going on to 3 hours. Now I'm calling. You guys want to keep going? You can keep going.
No, we're close to 1 a.m. here, and I'm starting to feel it.
Sorry about that, Nick. But man, thank you for always being there for me, Nick.
Of course.
And Chris Applin, thank you so much for coming on. We love you, man. We love all the things that you do and what we talk about. And you're always welcome back to Monitor Brains.
Yep.
Awesome. Keep up the good work, guys. Because, like I said, any Monitor podcast, and especially your one, I love falling asleep to it. But yeah, I do go back and listen to it as well. It's nice to hear some English voices. Sometimes, not that you're English, but like an English language in Indonesian all the time. So yeah, I do appreciate it. But
Thank you for coming on, Chris. Like I've been telling Uncle Mike from the beginning, I was excited to have you on. It's someone that I really wanted to have on. So
that's why when I contacted you, Chris, I was like, because we were planning for April. I said, can you do this Thursday? And you're like, oh, what time, mate? And I told you, and you said, oh, that's like 5 a.m. here. I'm like, Nick, I got bad news for you, and I got good news. He says, give me the bad news is you're going to be up late Thursday. What's the good news? We got Chris Applin. He's like, no problem.
Yeah.
Awesome.
No, not a problem at all.
Well, good luck, guys. Keep it going. Thank you very much for having me on. I love talking monitors, talking how much I don't like taxonomy these days. Hopefully someone got a bit of information out of that. But and publish your stuff. Everyone get publishing your stuff.
Hey,
and,
listen, man, I not for nothing, I couldn't help but notice. I hear all these things about people on Zoom call meetings with their work, and they stand up and they're in their underwear. You ain't in your underwear, are you, Chris?
No. I'm in shorts, mate.
Oh. I seen your knee. I was like, no, this guy's not in his underwear, is it?
It's so funny because I thought about that before this podcast. I was like, I could do this pantsless and nobody would ever know. But I got shorts on too, I promise. I'm not doing any weird stuff.
Spot, Chris, but that's just
No, that's
a different platform. Probably get more money from doing that than I would the monitor.
Absolutely. Well, listen, this was Monitor Brains podcast number 16 with Chris Applin. Much respect and love to you, brother. And we'll see all you guys next time.
See you guys next time. Thanks for watching.